Oh my God. I knew that they did. I knew that there was something. I didn't know what she said, but I knew that something was said.
She got a good block.
You should address me as parliamentarian.
Oh, yes, excuse me, sir. Parliamentarian hall.
They're on their way out.
Parliamentarian hall.
Well, that didn't sound good. I mean, it didn't sound bad.
Parliamentarian hyphen.
John, I started.
Email on
Anyone else a couple minutes away out there?
Commissioner Johnson's coming in.
Commissioner Johnson. We might as well get the ball rolling. All right, let's call this Caddo Parish Commission meeting to order. It is a work session for Tuesday, January 18th. It is at 3:33. Roll call, please, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins.
Here.
Johnson. Jackson.
Here.
Young.
Present.
Burrell. Jones.
Here.
Gage Watts. Talaferro.
Yes, sir.
Atkins.
Here.
Chavez.
Here.
Lazarus.
Here.
And Epperson. All right, I've got 10 present and 2 absent, and that is a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. For our invocation, could we please ask Commissioner Jones to lead us in invocation and Commissioner Chavez lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody please stand.
Let us pray. God our Father, we thank you for life, for health, and for strength. We thank you for the opportunity to come and reason together. We pray that you would bless our parish and our city, protect us from all hurt, harm, and danger. And ultimately, oh God, everything that we do, we pray that you were pleased with it. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray and ask all things. Amen.
Amen. Amen. If everybody face the flag, place your right hand over your heart. Military in uniform and veterans may render a hand-to-brow salute. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Commissioner Jones, for that nice invocation, and thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Mr.
Yes, sir.
Clerk, do we have any agenda additions?
I'm not aware of any agenda additions today.
Okay, citizens' comments. I believe we have 3. Have you received any additional ones?
Just received another one.
Okay, anyone who's interested in a citizen comment, please submit your visitor recognition card to the clerk. Meanwhile, we'll have Ms. Shirley Pearson. Good afternoon, Ms. Pearson. Welcome to the commission meeting. If
Thank you very much. Good
if
afternoon
you
to you.
could please introduce your topic, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm here to speak on the 4th Street.
Okay?
My name is Shirley Pearson, and I reside at 2106 Wyoming Circle, 71101. I'm here representing the School Park Neighborhood Association, which consists of approximately 80 families. The subdivision is located right off 4th Street, so we travel it daily. We're concerned about the deplorable condition of that street, and some sections in particular. It has been this way for a few years now, and the section of the street from Leroy to Dale on the south side lane heading east is tearing up our vehicles. Some people choose to drive on the other side of the street sometime if, you're not seeing. I've seen other people drive on the other side of the street to avoid the bumps, the potholes, the unevenness of the street, the humps and bumps in certain sections. Is really like a roller coaster. So we have informed city and parish officials about the condition of the street, and we were told that it is a state highway. So it is now our understanding that the state is willing to do improvements after the city of Shreveport does their part. And I understand that the parish's involvement is also crucial in getting this done, and that's why we're before you today. We're asking that you do whatever it takes within your power to fix this problem. 4th Street is well traveled. It leads directly to downtown, and I'm sure you know that the Amazon plant is near that section, so that's going to mean even more traffic. Finally, since I'm here today, I'd like to thank you, especially Commissioner Jackson, for taking the initiative to name a portion of 4th Street after my husband, the late Carl Pearson, who served as a parish commissioner for 12 years. So when we received the notification from the state, my family and I were very elated that Carl would be honored in this manner, so thank you very much. We hope and pray that you will help in repairing and maintaining 4th Street for the citizens in the Allendale community and for those in other communities who travel it frequently, and we thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson. I was very impressed by your husband. I met him several times when he was on the commission. Travis Bogan. Thank you for coming down, Mr. Bogan. If you could please let us know the topic, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, good afternoon. My name's Travis Bogan, and my address is 1954 Willow Ridge Boulevard here in Shreveport, 71119. And I'm here to talk about the 4th Street issue also. I am a member of the historic Mount Canaan Baptist Church, which is located in the Allendale community, and all of our members have to travel 4th Street in order to get to our church services. The condition of the street is really unacceptable. It's really, as Ms. Pearson stated, it's not even good for your vehicle to travel. I don't know what the speed limit is, but whatever it is, it's like one continuous speed bump. And I also would like to thank Commissioner Jackson for his commitment to doing something, and I urge all of you to support that effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bogan. Paul Pratt. Hello, Mr. Pratt.
Yeah, good afternoon, Paul Pratt, 935 East 7th. I am rising again in opposition of Resolution 84 that will come before you guys today and on Thursday. You should have a joint letter from Lamoga as well as Loga in opposition of this resolution also. We see that this resolution is very restrictive and essentially imposes a de facto moratorium on oil and gas drilling. Since 2014, the natural gas industry has produced about 5,000 jobs annually here in Caddo Parish, as well as a $190 million annual payroll. In addition to that, $100 million in severance tax, as well as ad valorem taxes to Caddo Parish. Resolution 84 will be restrictive and crippling to our economy because our oil and gas producers can go across the state line to Texas, where they have less restrictive language in their rules for drilling and operating. For example, setbacks. We see that it's proposed 3,000 feet setback. It's not based on any science or any data or current analytics. This is overreaching, as well as probably the most restrictive setback in the nation. So we've worked with other communities, DeSoto Parish, Bossier Parish, and come down with common language that makes sense not only for those parish governments, but also for landowners. There's other things that are also in 84, nighttime completion, which could be problematic for operators because it would prolong them drilling as well as fracking, could increase costs as well as pulling thousands of feet of pipe out of the ground each night. That will be a safety issue for not only our workers on the forefront, but also our landowners. There are other things that are also mentioned in this 12 provisions of Resolution 84. We see something as significant as a financial surety. That could be very problematic because of this potential for misabuse and misuse. All of the other provisions and mechanisms are already the rules of the state. We ask that you continue to work with the industry as well as the Department of Natural Resources to come up with a concerted effort to mitigate noise and dust and all that for the landowners here in Caddo Parish. And I just want you guys to remember one of the reasons why Caddo Parish is flush with a nice revenue is because of the monies that you receive from oil and gas exploration about 10 years ago. So let's not make these operators go to other areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Pastor Williams. Pastor Williams.
Good afternoon. I am here also in support of Shirley Pearson. I am the Vice President of the School Park Association, and our concerns are again Ford Street. As a lifelong resident of the Allendale Lakeside community, the neighborhood that I reside in was built in 1962. Therefore, this neighborhood is 60 years old this year. And in my lifetime of being a resident there, I've never seen Ford Street in such the condition that it is in. It is very unsafe to travel. If you don't wear your seatbelt, you will wear it once you come off of Ford Street, I guarantee you. You will end up in the top of your vehicle. And it is a very frequent travel street, and I know that you guys will do what is within your power to help us in this situation. There are various churches that are on that street, major churches as far as St. Rest in that area, Mount Cana, Trinity Baptist Church, and all of these churches use that as an assessment to their property, as well as going downtown. In fact, there is on the other end of 4th Street, which is Caddo, there is also construction of nice apartments going up. And I'm quite sure that the people who have a tendency to move in there would not like to have to travel that roller coaster ride in order to get home or away from home, as well as Amazon being in the area. So please, if you would do what is right in assisting us in getting that corrected. Thank you for your time and your patience.
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Okay, Mr. Clark, you don't have any more cards, do you? Seeing none, we have visitors. Mr. Clark, do we have anyone representing the disparity study team today?
Not today. That update was provided. Let's see. I actually don't have that on the on my version of the agenda. That may have been from the draft agenda.
Okay, it's one I have earlier. Yes, I think Commissioner Vice President Burrell has a comment.
On our first visitor, Mr. Collins Brown, whom I worked with over several years on the Red River Waterway Commission, it's my understanding from our clerk that they postponed their visit again, I understand, due to another conflict in meetings. I'm hoping that they recognize that we do want to talk with them, especially you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, as well as Commissioner Chavez, and I would like to have an update. And I would also like to request our appointed board member, commissioner, to accompany them. So if they're not coming this time, I would, at least by Thursday, hopefully they will.
Okay. And so they've been notified and planning to be here Thursday?
Duly notified back in December up until today.
Okay.
And I think it's time for us to visit.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think, Stephen Jackson, you're on the board. I don't see you, but.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to be a part of whatever conversation that's going to be had with the Red River Waterway Commission. I think my district probably has the most riverfront property on it, and so I definitely would like to be. I probably would split the riverfront portion with regard to the amount with Commissioner John Paul Young, and so at least the navigable part of it with Commissioner John Paul Young. So I definitely would like to be part of that conversation as well. I know it's been an ongoing conversation.
When I was there, Mr. Chairman, on the board, there were several things that were sort of on the agenda that affected Shreveport and to the north, and I think those issues should be redressed.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Let's see. Next item is Terry Pritchard with the North Louisiana Criminalistics Laboratory. I understand that that he is asked to be moved to Thursday. Could I have a motion to move him to Thursday?
Make the motion.
Motion by
Second.
John Paul Young and second by Commissioner Burrell. Do we need a vote on that, or is that by acclamation? Everybody okay with that? Seeing no concern, let's move on. All right.
And the next visitor is, you have scheduled, is Put a Poem on It, which is Poetic X, and Pam Atchison, I believe, are here today representing that.
All right.
And just as an aside, I'm sorry, I was trying to answer another question. I'm not sure if it was said earlier, but Mr. Brown from the Red River Waterway Commission did provide a written report that was forwarded to each of you. So you should have that in your email if you haven't seen it yet.
Okay. Hello, Ms. Atchison. Hello, Poetic X.
Hello.
Are we going to present?
Go ahead.
Mr. President and members of the Commission, it's a joy to be here to talk about a project that Poetic shared with you on his introduction inauguration as your Poet Laureate. He had an idea at that time that thankfully Commissioner Jackson said, I'd like to hear more about it. Please put it together, organize it, and submit it to us. So Poetic thought about it for some time. I don't want to put words in his mouth. He's going to tell you what it is, but he has worked on it, and the Arts Council is delighted to support him administratively on the project that would literally put a poem in each of your districts. You go ahead, Poet.
Well, first I want to say thank you first for voting me in as Caddo Parish Poet Laureate. I'm grateful. I did have the idea of put a poem on, and I was able to speak it in front of Commissioner Jackson, and the idea was to put a poem in each commissioner's district. I could recommend that particular location if it was a location that you all could recommend in your location, in your district, that you all would want a poem on, then I would just research the history of that neighborhood, the experiences, the events, and create a poem that's complimentary of those experiences in that neighborhood, and a person will come out and they will get to experience that. From what I'm told, they can have a selfie station, maybe a QR, a code, where then they can see more into poetry and the history of put a poem on it. So that is mainly, what I would like to see, in Shreveport, where basically the citizens can just experience, poetry as myself being in the poet life.
Thank you very much. Any,
So just in a nutshell, these would be poetry murals, one per district. The idea would be that it represents the interest of the people in your district according to the site you select. So if you selected a school, it would obviously want to focus on what the children might be thinking or dealing with. If you selected a public building, of course, the idea might be the history of that building. And then the Arts Council would support Poetic's vision by having a selection process for visual artists to illumine that mural and make it an artwork, as he already said, that could be a selfie station or just a great reflection in the community station. And our thought really is that even though he's put together a budget that could be accomplished in a year and an aggressive timeline in a year, this really might be a 2-year project to be able to include the community of each of your districts in a meaningful way that creates a mural that could be vinyl installed. That's the best way to install a mural that doesn't damage a building and that can be removed in 5 years. Or, again, according to your wishes, it could be a painted mural, but we are finding the vinyl murals to be the least intrusive, particularly to the historic buildings that we have in the parish.
okay, thank you. I see Commissioner Jackson on the board.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. As they mentioned, I did get a chance to meet with Poetic X, and I don't think that basically the timing of us appointing him as the poet laureate and our budget kind of didn't mesh well, and so I did ask them to come down to the committee and present this, and so I think this is an example. It's on our agenda today, but it's an example of our poet laureate doing basically what we asked him to do, which is come up with some projects. And so I know you talked about just sort of the nuts and bolts of it, but how do you see this fitting within the character of neighborhoods? Or I heard you say students could come and learn a little bit more about it. Do you see an education?
Inspiration, motivation, encouragement, inspire them to write, get involved more in literacy programs, literature, in any way, in any means possible. I'm a big fan of writing, so I would like to see as many persons in Caddo Parish just gravitate more to poetry, or if they come in, meet in communities and they create round tables centered around poetry, and I want to see them publishing works as well. So it can be an opportunity for me to meet members from those communities, and they can get published. They can have their works recorded in the studio as well. I teach workshops, so I can help them get involved in the workshops.
And and again, I know we're going to have the ordinance and discussion, but it looks like the SHRAC is basically donating your support to get this project done or seeing it through. So.
Yes, we'll partner with you to take care of the administration. I want to just make sure that you do know, though, the poetry itself that would be on the
Might want
murals.
to speak into that mic, Pam. I'm sorry.
1 minute. The poetry itself, even though Poetic wants to do workshops and engage the community, it would be his spoken word poem.
Okay.
And the QR code would take you to a recording of Poetic presenting that poem. So not only are you getting it as a mural, but you're also getting an opportunity with your phone to hear the reading of the poem through his spoken word expertise.
Okay. And again, it's commissioners would basically choose what areas in their district. So
Yes.
All right, we've got Commissioner Young on the board. I'm sorry, you done, Commissioner?
good. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. President.
Commissioner Young?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Atchison, nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for being here, neighbor. One type of mural that I would be interested in seeing in Shreveport, which I've admired in other cities, particularly Rome, is a power washing mural where it becomes a black and white mural by removing stains and making images that way. So I just wanted to mention that briefly to you, to put it on your radar to think about.
Thank you very much.
would he be putting a poem on it?
Yeah, you could do it as a poem. You could do images that way, whatever.
Okay, is that it, Commissioner Young?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I don't see anyone else on the board. Thank you, Poetic X. Thank you, Ms. Atchison. Thank you all for your, for all you do for the parish.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Okay, and the next item you have is Kay West and the Greater Shreveport Chamber of Commerce. I believe she's here with their leadership program, and she has a couple other guests.
Got it, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kay West. My address is 2535 Bercoons, and today I'm here on behalf of the Greater Leadership Program. I had the privilege of being in the 44th class for 2021. It was a great experience to be a part of the Greater Leadership Program for the Chamber of Commerce. And through the program, we learned all about economic development, transportation, education. There were times that we went out into the public. You know, we were affected by COVID, but we did get a chance to get out into the public and learn more about how organizations partner together to really drive economic development in the community. And for our class project, we put together a project. I'm going to let Cadavian tell you more about it, but we put together a class project to really showcase what we would like to see Shreveport. And Poetic was just up here a few minutes ago, but we put together a public arts project that we really would like Caddo Commission to fund. Help fund.
Yeah, so as Kay mentioned, we put together this project. I suggested it and spoke with Shreveport Regional Arts Council about how we could bring this together. The objective and our goal from the chamber class is to communicate the deep desire for positive transformation and continued expansion and growth across our community. So to create a landmark at the Marshall Street underpass, which goes right into downtown, it's a beautiful corridor, if wrapped in this beautiful amalgamation of colors. These colors that serve as the background that you see on page 4 of your handout represent the welcoming and encompassing feel and identity and culture of the citizens of Shreveport-Bossier, welcoming of all types of people. And coupled with that is the symbol of the butterfly and the human hand connecting, showing the attainment of transformation. Using that symbol on the entry of both sides of the underpass is our goal, and to work with all of our community leaders in order to communicate and serve as pillars of our community to make this happen.
Do I have any questions?
Any questions? Thank you all. Any questions? We see Commissioner, let's see, Vice President Commissioner Burrell.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, it wasn't on.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. As with SHRAC, and put a poem on it, the Greater Shreveport Chamber reached out to me. I think the location where y'all are trying to do this is in District 3, and so they approached me and asked me if I would support it, and you know, I'm a supporter of public art, and so I said sure, you know, put the proposal. Did y'all get the application? Did y'all get? Okay, so we got to get y'all the application because there is an NGO application process, and that might be why. Because I thought it was supposed to have been with the put a poem on it or whatnot, but you know, I'm always thanks Tim and the chamber for getting young professionals involved in our city. I had a conversation with someone this morning about, you know, what Shreveport is going to be in 10, 15 years, and I was able to reference the YPI initiative and things like that. So this is why I enjoy my district, is because I get to represent the Shirley Pearsons of the world, the Mount Canaans of the world, but also get to represent the young vibrancy, which is downtown, and what you're trying to do to revitalize the edge of downtown, and not to forget the arts, wherever Pam is, I'm sorry. But, I represent this mixed amalgamation of identities and personalities, and so I'm never closed off to any of them. And so once we get that application process going, and I guess it'll have to go through the proper channels, and then we'll see from there. But I'm supportive, and I hope the body will support the project as well.
Thank you. And
Thank
so
you,
I
Mr.
did
President.
want to say that, part of the project, we did set a budget for $50,000. Our first round of funding came from the city of Shreveport.
Right.
And we also raised about $13,000. So we're looking for the Caddo Commission to kind of support us in the efforts to match that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you reaching out, and we'll start moving it through the proper channels. And that's it for me, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, President. Guys, thanks for coming down. You obviously know I support this because I've personally financially invested in this endeavor, but as my colleagues may not know, my office is literally right next door to these pillars, so I'm thrilled about this. And we actually finished the mural on my building today.
That's awesome.
Besides myself, I know Ryan Williams has invested a lot of money in this street and the Red River Brewery and the 1200 Marshall Street, and we've talked about this for years, and we envision a community cleanup quarterly with murals across every building and just revitalize Marshall Street. So whoever came up with this idea is directly in unison with what Ryan and I have been thinking about, and I'm super thrilled. My only question, I didn't see the artist or whom you would choose to paint it, and then I guess those pillars are really high. How would the artist get up there to do this endeavor?
Yeah, so I'm Cadavian Baylor, public artist from here. I've been doing public art projects throughout the city, and the butterfly is something that's constant throughout the projects because I have a deep desire myself to see the city continue to transform and evolve. So that's my artistic touch. I'm the lead artist on this project. 2 assistant artists, Ben Moss and Eric Francis, will also be assisting on the project. And we also have a few people working on helping us get boom lifts for the project. They will require boom lifts. The tallest column is about 38 feet. So
We'll be out there bringing you guys food and drink, so I'm looking forward to this.
We're all for it.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, President.
Yes, sir. Parliamentarian Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. This seems like a great idea. I'm really excited about it. I have 2 thoughts. One of them is basically the same thought that I suggested to Pam Atchison. In the picture you provided us, the pillars look great. The sides of these partitions at the edge of the interstate are really grimy and gross looking. Power washing them entirely might be exhausting and maybe not as artistic, but you could put a poem there sideways, or say maybe even just the artist's name, like a signature, just trying to make it look a little prettier once it's done. And then one second thought is, in some future year, I think it would be really great to do the same kind of project on Dalzell Street underneath I-49 near Great Raft. It's on the edge of District 5 and District 4, and that would be a nice improvement there too. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I know Commissioner Burrell wants to hold off till the last. So Commissioner Jackson, you're back on the board.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I heard Commissioner Chavez say he was excited and supportive of it. I hope it's just not contingent upon it being in the space where your office location is. And I'm just hoping that enthusiasm is going to spread over to put a poem on it as well. So just putting that out there.
Absolutely.
Anybody else on this topic? Okay, Commissioner Burrell, what do you have?
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. It's not pertaining to your project. I see Dr. Magner, who is here, and I wanted to address something with him before he sat down so he won't have to come back up again.
Okay.
Dr. Magner is heading up our broadband committee, what I call an umbrella broadband committee, not the commission broadband committee that we're working on specifically for Caddo Parish. And if you could give us a little update as to where he is, because we haven't been able to meet recently with the umbrella committee. We have been meeting on our Caddo Commission, what do you call it, Community
Broadband Commission.
Broadband Committee. So if you would, please.
Certainly. So this was something that we began doing late last year, or middle of last year, I guess, with the commission representative, with Commissioner Burrell, but also with Terry Calloway from the commission, Keith Hansen from the city, folks from the school board, from the sheriff's office, and from the library. From the library, all to talk about the collaborating in developing a coherent broadband plan for our community. As you now know, there's going to be significant federal dollars that are going to be coming this way as a consequence of the infrastructure, the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was passed, and we wanted to avoid overbuild or duplication, and also to begin to look at how do we create connections between the various networks and systems that exist. Many of them are funded through different funding sources. The schools and libraries have the E-rate program. The Department of Homeland Security supports the sheriff's offices, and there are state and federal dollars that support some of the rollout that's going on. And so it's been more of an informal collaboration right now to begin to identify areas where there is either undercapacity or overcapacity in both the city and the parish, and to see where, for example, with the school adding fiber up to North Caddo High School or things like that, does it go by a sheriff's office, or does it go by a municipal building in the parish or something, so that we could look at leveraging those. We've also been involved or in communications with Vineeth Iyengar, who is the state broadband director. And one of the things that we've been working with them to do is to try and enable the alignment and integration of funding. Currently, right now, the E-rate funding is very restrictive in terms of how it can be used to access school and library patrons, but many neighborhoods around those institutions could benefit from Wi-Fi access and other things. So there's some alignment there. A couple of the specific efforts that we've been successful at just locally is working with the schools and the police and sheriff's office to provide access to the school cameras for first responders in an active shooter situation. There's been some important dialogue that's happened around security, and they've gotten the security folks together, and so there's been some good conversation there. Those are the types of sort of real world, management level conversations that we've been focused on, as well as some of the broader strategic issues, looking at maps, looking at figuring out where, who has fiber where, can we align that, or can we at least avoid duplication when it comes to new build. Our hope, as Commissioner Burrell has said, with the holidays and COVID and everything else, we've had some hiatus. We're hoping to get back together beginning in February to begin to figure out, now that it's likely that the federal money will be coming here. One of the things that Vineeth Iyengar and Senator Long, who was also working with Senator Cassidy's office, be able to provide us with some alignment around the federal dollars, and now that we have an idea of what those federal dollars are going to be, putting together packages that can focus on how we do that collectively as well. So,
All right.
thank
you, Mr. Magner. Appreciate that.
In addition, Mr. President, the GO grant, which is the money that the state has, the deadline for that was the 31st of December, 2021. And we thought that the parish could apply for it, but it's actually the providers have to apply for that money. Correct. And I understand 53 parishes did apply for that money. So hopefully we'll be getting some, hopefully through the providers.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Thank you all, and Ms. West. Thank you all for coming in. I'm sure that Commissioner Jackson will work with you to facilitate your requests.
Can y'all get them the application? I don't know if y'all's changed, but I thought they got the application.
Sorry, I've got one more question from Commissioner Epperson.
NGO.
This is just a point of information, Mr. Chairman. Just want to remind us that we must make our debate and questions during this section germane. to the persons that are here?
Well, I was notified of that, but I didn't see a harm in letting a little point of information. We weren't voting on anything.
Long agenda today.
Yes, sir, there is. You're right, you're right. All right,
John Atkins, I need to ask a question. Our project actually kicks off March. We're going to begin painting. When is the application process? What is the time frame for the application process?
He's moving now,
Well,
Why don't
Mr.
y'all-
President.
Why don't y'all take that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tim, if you could take that up with Ms.
Well, Mr. President, I'll just note that we can
Bryant.
amend our budget at any time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Ms. West, Ms. Bryant can work with you over there. All right.
That
Go ahead,
brings us
Mr. Clerk.
to 6.5 on your agenda, and that is Dr. Yolanda Burnham with Community Healthcare Solutions. I believe Dr. Burnham is in the audience.
I have some cards. Is it okay if I?
Sure, you can hand them to the clerk and he'll distribute them.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Burnham, 1519 Creswell Avenue. Mr. President, as well as members of the commission, I'm here today to talk to you about a public health crisis, basically, as well as seek your assistance, support, and any available funding that my organization may qualify for. So I'd like to take you back to pre-pandemic, 2020. Community Healthcare Solutions, we basically treated over 3,000 clients with intensive services. Intensive services, let me show you how that looks. Client comes in, we provide these intensive services up to 14 days, and then we discharge them from our program. Of those 3,000 clients that we treated, less than 2% of those clients returned for additional services or was admitted into an inpatient psychiatric facility, which is a level 1, or the legal system. Now, during May of 2019, the Department of Health and Hospitals, as well as Medicaid, they came in and did a site visit. They basically wanted to know, why were we sending all of our clients through crisis services? I basically told them, because the old way of keeping clients and recipients in services for long term is a medical model. It doesn't work. Basically, that concept came from when I was deployed. I've had several deployments, one in particular to Iraq. As a behavioral health officer, we cannot afford soldiers to come in, keep them, treat them while they're in a combat setting.
Dr. Burnham, please speak into the mic.
Oh, okay.
We're losing you when you,
Oh, okay.
I know you're facing
I'm just trying to
yeah, I
make
know,
sure
but
I
we
see
lose you.
everybody. All right. So they come in, we provide those services, and we send them back out on the mission. Okay. So basically, Medicaid told us this model works. Somehow we've gotten off track. Now, the part that's most interesting is November of 2019, after meeting with Medicaid, Southern Poverty Law Center sued the state of Louisiana, basically for non-existent, intensive, community-based services. That's what I'm here to talk to you today about, seeking services. Now, as a result of our research, and this is why I stand before you today, to offer a solution based on what that research says, what the data shows, as well as what Southern Poverty Law Center discovered. Community Healthcare Solutions is in the process of opening a 24/7 crisis stabilization center. The name of that is Alternative Interventions. It will be a nonprofit. That's why I'm here, to seek assistance for that. This will be a duplex that can house up to 12 clients up to 14 days. Our goal is to keep them between 5 and 7 days. Mr. Burrell had an opportunity to come and visit our location. It is 2656 Quinton Street. It will be staffed 24/7 with a licensed provider, mental health specialist, peer support, and a nurse. We will also have a computer lab as well as daily activities. It will be a home-like setting. But most importantly, we will offer a mobile crisis van. Our goal is to offer a different solution than Brentwood or maybe the juvenile justice system for those non-violent crimes. We hope to partner with the city police, probation officers, as well as you all. Why not partner with me? Why not create a test pilot of this model that works? The research shows that it works, as well as Southern Poverty Law discovered the same thing. Why not reallocate funding, designated for jails or more pods or whatever institutionalized setting that you have for our children? Why not partner with the combat female veteran? So I thank you for your time. I thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I'll feel more free than that.
We have two people on the board.
Okay.
Commissioner Burrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Burnham, I didn't get a chance to meet you when I came to your facility. It is in my commission district on Quinton Street,
Yes, sir.
2656 Quinton Street. I did meet a couple of people that I knew that worked for you.
Okay.
That was there. It was a very nice facility, very nice visit, and the services that you're offering is very much needed in that area. Matter of fact, throughout Shreveport.
Yes.
Especially with all the killing and stuff that has been going on. It's just been a rash of that, and hopefully you will be addressing that from the standpoint of preventive medicine, I guess you would say.
Yes, sir.
So again, appreciate you coming down.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Burnham, am I saying that right?
Yes, sir.
I see on your card you have Uri Drive, but then I heard you say Crestwell when you introduced yourself, and then I just heard Commissioner Burrell say Clinton Street.
Yes.
Where-
So, Community Healthcare Solutions is currently located at 1519 Crestwell.
Okay.
The Uri Drive location is currently the location that will be allocated for the clinical setting for the duplexes. So, it's still part of Community Healthcare Solutions, so we actually have both of those locations.
And what's on Clinton Street?
Quinton Street is where the duplexes will be, where we will house the children
Okay,
that
so
are
now-
in need of crisis services.
So the duplex is on Clinton Street.
Quinton, yes, sir.
Quinton Street, okay, Quinton Street. And Uri Drive is the medical
Uri Drive is where the admin office will be.
admin. Okay, gotcha, admin. And then I heard you talk about reallocating funds to our institutional from our institutional settings. Maybe I can solicit a partner in this endeavor. We currently, right now, we spend probably $5-6 million on inmate health care in Caddo Parish.
Right.
And it's not rehabilitating anybody.
Right.
It's just money going out the door somewhere.
Right.
And I have insisted that we're just wasting money doing that. And so I'd be interested in talking to you about how we can probably work with your service
Right.
to, one, get that cost down, but two, there's an empty facility right across the street from CCC. The state owns it, but it's sitting vacant. And it's probably less than 10 years old. And I have asked, why can't it be turned into an inpatient facility? Because what Medicaid allows is when a person is incarcerated as a pretrial detainee, their Medicaid funds are not revoked, they just can't use them.
Right.
And so you have a benefit that you have no access to, but the parish is now on the hook for picking up that bill. And so, Dr. Wilson, I'd like to see how we can set something up, arrange something where we can see how maybe what Ms. Burnham is trying to do to work within our system or work within the resources that we have, because $5 million is a lot of money
Absolutely.
on health care for inmates. And I think we can make better use of that $5, and the number's just going up over the years. And you can look at the curve and just tell it's just going up and up and up and up. So would love to, and I imagine the bulk of that is probably mental psychosis, behavioral health and stuff like that. And I think we could do a much more efficient job
Right.
with what it sounds like. And it sounds like, are you gonna be inpatient? Is your facility inpatient?
It's not really inpatient.
It's not inpatient.
Again, it's an intensive community-based program.
So, okay, so not inpatient.
Right. So our goal is not to keep our clients in treatment for long periods of time, because again, that's an old medical model. It does not work. Research shows that it doesn't work.
Right, but are they there for more than 24 hours?
Yes.
So that in the context of CMS, that's inpatient.
Okay.
With what we're talking about. And all they have to do is be there for 24 hours, and now they can access their Medicaid benefits.
Right.
So be happy to have some additional conversations with you about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was going to basically ask administration to see what programs that we have that could fit what she's trying to do. I know she mentioned about juveniles. I mean, we know that there are behavior issues in Caddo Parish with some of the crime that we do have. And so if the juvenile detention area is one area that she can go in and look to see if there's a program that can fit that she has, I would say that we look into that. Just like Commissioner Jackson said, even with the CCC, you know, we own the building, but we get charged for about everything that's in the building. And so if it's something that we can do to help lower that, that's wonderful as well. So this is talent that's in the area that we need to utilize, and just asking to see if we got anything that can fit it.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Thank you, Dr. Burnham.
Thank you, sir.
Who do we have next, Mr. Clerk?
We have Kevin Murnane is here with the LSU HSC wastewater study. And Kevin has a presentation. It should be loaded on the computer. If we could.
Okay, I think Commissioner Burrell and Commissioner Epperson invited Dr. Murnane up. So, Commissioner Burrell, do you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. President, I was glad to see Dr. Murnane get on the agenda again. We had an opportunity to visit by Zoom, and some of the research that he's doing is very, very fascinating and really could help us a lot. As you remember, you all appropriated $50,000 toward wastewater testing. That was so important because testing has become a problem in terms of COVID, and person-to-person testing. What they've discovered is that we could test our wastewater and get more than we could if we were just testing person-to-person. So Dr. Murnane is here to talk about that.
Welcome, Dr. Murnane. The floor is yours.
I appreciate it very much. I couldn't help myself as a college professor. I had to bring a presentation. As Commissioner Burrell pointed out, we can test the wastewater. Wastewater is a profoundly useful technology. Anything that a physician can detect from an individual patient, we can detect on a community level for public health monitoring and directing public health resources. You can, in the context of coronavirus, we can detect the presence of the virus, and we can detect it even earlier than when somebody becomes symptomatic. So we can start to mobilize the hospital system and the healthcare system very early by monitoring the wastewater. And this is being done all around the country. There was a lot of press reports recently about how Boston had a huge spike in their coronavirus numbers in the wastewater right before the Omicron wave hit Massachusetts. But you can test other things. You can test for...
Dr. Murnane, can you get a little closer to the mic? We're having
Sure.
trouble hearing you.
Sure.
Just come up, step a little, just a few inches closer.
Is that better?
That's better, thank you.
So you can test for coronavirus, but you can also test for methamphetamine, you can test for opioids, you can test for markers of cardiovascular health, you can test for cancer metrics, anything that a physician can test from a patient, we can use for across the whole community with this technology. And what's exciting to me is that it can be used for justice and equity, because it's a very fair system, a very objective scientific system to direct these public health decisions, and that's much less susceptible to inherent biases and other things when subjective judgments are made. So we've been testing around the city of Shreveport for the last year and a half in various communities. This is some data showing the individual test from individual tests showing the coronavirus spike during the third wave. So you can see how across the parish from these individual tests we all get with the nasal swabs, there was an increase over these months. And when we tested in the
individual neighborhoods, you can see that in the open circles there. And what's important is it spikes in the wastewater about 6 weeks before it spikes in the individual test data. So those weeks are precious weeks that allow us to mobilize resources and really try to make a difference as early as possible and isolate the community spread to a specific community rather than letting it spread to the whole parish. So we talked about that last time I was here, but just to give you some progress updates, we've also been testing for substance use patterns, looking at methamphetamine and opioids in partnership with the North Louisiana Criminalistics Laboratory. This is just some data from this little town in Kentucky that's sort of notorious as the methamphetamine capital of the world. And you can't see all these numbers, but if you looked in, the numbers are about 200, 300, 400 when they test their wastewater in Kentucky. But we got numbers in the 4,000 range in Shreveport. So it's a little early to tell, but it looks like methamphetamine, per capita use of methamphetamine in Shreveport in particular, might be some of the highest levels in the whole country and maybe in the whole world. So we're trying to work within the Addiction Center to try to do something about this really terrible scourge that's affecting all of our communities. But when we went into this, we didn't just, people believe that we might see the methamphetamines prevalent in just the neighborhoods that are very underserved in the city, and that is somewhat true, that it's there in those neighborhoods, but it's in every neighborhood that we've tested in Shreveport. And there's some drugs that are even more prevalent in overserved communities, particularly the opioids that are extremely prevalent in parts of the city that people wouldn't necessarily expect to have such a high level of these drugs in them. We're also using this to try to direct interventions. One example of this is that we've been working with the Shreveport Police Department to do crisis intervention training, de-escalation training. One of the really bad effects of methamphetamine is it can produce a thing called excited delirium, which really compromises somebody's ability to interact with somebody, makes them a very fear-provoking state, which compounds that interaction with law enforcement, which is very unfair to the law enforcement officer and the community member in that interaction. And so we can provide training through the Addiction Center and LSU to help the police officers interact with the community using the most modern techniques and the most modern approaches. And we've also started testing now from the treatment plants. We've been testing from the Lucas treatment plant and from the North Regional treatment plant over the last several months in addition to this neighborhood testing. And we see in these treatment plants, we again see that spike in coronavirus early before you see the individual test numbers. So some of the things we're going to work on the next few months, one thing we're going to work on is increase the sampling frequency. We didn't see that early spike with Omicron. Omicron came on so fast that when we're sampling it once every 2 weeks, as we've been doing, the numbers spiked on the parish level from the individual testing just as fast there. And so we really need to increase our sampling frequency to about twice every single week. We're also making a nice dashboard system so we can present data back to the Louisiana Department of Health and to the Commission and to the other partners we're working with so that it's intelligible and it's easy to digest, and so you can create actionable public health decisions from that. And we're working on making sure we can sequence for variants. It's important to get these test data back from the wastewater on the overall level, but it's also really important to know which variant is prevalent on a community level, which is hard to do on an individual level because we're only sequencing about small single-digit percentage of the test samples we get. But we can do this much more readily using the wastewater. And we're trying to build this out to a statewide system. All of our communities are interconnected, and so if we can do this on the state level, it's going to be much more actionable. So we're trying to work with the Louisiana Department of Health to create a statewide consortium that includes Tulane, LSU, Baton Rouge, University of Louisiana, Lafayette, Grambling, University of Louisiana Tech, University of Louisiana Monroe, and us in Shreveport together, and other partners that were interested, other universities that would be interested. So we can do this across the entire state. And provide a statewide surveillance system. And sort of last, we're trying to get out into more rural areas. As many of the commissioners know, testing in rural areas is much more challenging than testing in a city area because they're not on a water system. A lot of people are in septic tanks. So coming up with a good plan for testing in these rural areas is another area we're working in. And our initial idea is to go to the 6 main municipalities in the parish, go to Oil City, Vivian, Mooringsport, Greenwood, Blanchard, in addition to Shreveport, and test with their systems, and then move out into even more unincorporated areas, and perhaps using Keithville as an area to test. But if any of the commissioners have relationships with these local municipal authorities, or have ideas of places to test, or could help us facilitate those conversations, we've got a good relationship with the city of Shreveport, but we are just now moving out into the rest of the parish, and we'd love your help to be able to do that. That's the end of the presentation. I appreciate the commission's time.
Thank you very much. We have several commissioners on the board. I will encourage us all to keep it kind of tight, keep these questions tight, because we do have a long agenda that we've yet to get to. Very interesting presentation. Commissioner Burrell.
I'll just say last, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I just want to ask a question. I know you doing the wastewater testing and sampling, and you're finding that the virus is in there. So when you go to the Lucas plant, they have those aeration pumps that's putting this mist in the air. Are we concerned about that making the virus go in the air and affect other people?
So it's not live virus, it's just tiny fragments of the DNA of the virus that we detect using the technology. And so it's just little pieces of the virus. It's not live virus that can replicate or reproduce or have much of a chance of infecting anybody.
Okay, so if it's just the DNA of the virus, why are we concerned about it?
Because it can give us a level of the population infection. So when somebody is infected, even if they're not symptomatic, they'll excrete these DNA fragments into the wastewater system, so we can get a sample of how many people in the community and where in the community infections spring up.
Okay, and we do know that the mist does not carry the virus and it can infect anybody. We do know that.
It's extremely unlikely. I wouldn't be able to guarantee that, but it's extremely unlikely.
All right, because my major concern is like in the suburban areas where you have these wastewater treatment plants that have the sprayers that spray the water.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's in people's front yards, sometimes it's in people's backyard. And you got kids outside, you got senior citizens outside, and if that household is infected, will it infect other people in the neighborhood?
As far as I know, there's not a single recorded instance of someone getting infected from a water mist.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Parliamentarian Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Doctor, for being here. I just had 2 quick questions. The first one is, how do you test single neighborhoods in isolation as opposed to just generally? So like the Lucas plant drains many, many neighborhoods, maybe all of them. How do you do that?
So you can go right to the manhole. You can pull a manhole and test the water flowing through there, and the city has a map of all the feeder lines that come through there.
Okay.
And then you can go to a lift station to get sort of between the manhole and the overall plant.
Okay, so thank you. So then my second question is, so suppose that you found that there was a lot of coronavirus in, say, South Highlands. In practice, what kind of measures, what kind of public health measures would be taken to contain that? You mentioned containment.
That's a very good question. That's under raging debate, but we can send notifications potentially, like text notifications through the city's knowledge of who lives in particular areas. We can increase our outreach for vaccinations and for social distancing and masking and other interventions. People have talked about more vigorous interventions, but there's a lot of issues around that.
Okay, so you're not imagining, for instance, cordoning off a neighborhood?
I wouldn't be a proponent of that, no. We tried to cordon off South Africa, and that didn't work at all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Burrell.
Finally, Mr. Chairman, again, Dr. Renane, I'm very excited about your research because it gives us a myriad of significant information, empirical as well as scientific information. That takes a lot of the biasness out of and conjecture about different neighborhoods. And given the fact that if we're able to identify neighborhoods with higher level of say, drug activity, drugs, it may help the police department, not necessarily going in there and doing a raid, but at least set up some sort of program by which we can do better. So I find it very significant. I wasn't sure where we were going with this, but I can see a lot of value in it. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you. I think we've got, looks like Commissioner Jackson popped up on the board.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had one quick question. So when we hear or we see that the test positive rate has gone down or hospitalizations have gone down, have y'all seen instances through your wastewater testing where like, no, that's not necessarily true, or does it tend to line up?
No, there's a little bit of a lag to it because people continue to remain infected and stop getting tested. Usually,
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
There's a little bit of a lag to it because when people get infected, they stop getting tested. Usually, they just quarantine and then wait it out. They don't usually often get a follow-up test, so there's a little bit of lag. But they continue to be infected during that quarantine period. But it tracks quite well on the reverse side when it's fading out of the neighborhood too.
But you seem to see, but so you're saying y'all do see a correlation with the drops?
Yep.
And so your wastewater testing seems to validate that drop?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Thank you, Dr. Murnane, for visiting with us today. Very informative, very interesting. We appreciate your time and we appreciate your efforts to control the virus.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Clark.
All right, that brings us to reports. And just as a brief reminder, this section of your agenda had been moved later on in the agenda, but during your revisions to your bylaws in the late part of last year, you adjusted it back to this place on your agenda order. So I didn't want anybody to be confused by seeing it closer to the front of the agenda this time. That was based on the decision that you made when you revised your recent bylaws. So that being said, we are now at the administrator report.
Dr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. President Atkins and Commissioners, good afternoon. We have a few things for you today, sir, and I'd like to begin admin report by giving you an update on the Treasury ERAP program, and Ms. Haley Bryant will be giving us that update.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We are currently waiting on our last allocation from Treasury. We were reallocated funds through the state and through the national pool of $5.2 million. There's an ordinance on the agenda for that amount today. We have not yet received those funds, but as time goes by, we have already allocated right at $4 million of those funds to be paid out as soon as we get them. Because of that, we have decided to close the application portal on tomorrow, Wednesday, January the 19th. In the event that there is any additional reallocation from Treasury, we think it'll be several months before they make that kind of decision. In the event that there is a reallocation and Caddo is in receipt of that, we will have to go through the process of opening up our portal again, but we are ready and willing to do that, assuming we get more funds. I did put in for a second reallocation from the Treasury on Friday, but there is no indication as to when we'll get a response from that reallocation. Once we spend this 5.2, the parish of Caddo will have distributed right at $40 million of ERAP funds. But that's really all I have for today. It's just news that we're having to shut down our portal due to the ending of the funding at this time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Commissioners, they also want to add a couple comments to that. We currently spend about $1 million a week assisting residents who need emergency housing assistance. And it's a far cry, which in a good way, from the $7.1 million we initially received from the Treasury. And as Brian just said, we're running almost at $40 million. So I think we have done a tremendous job dispensing additional resources as they were available to us.
And we do have to cut it off at some point, and we think we will be able to exhaust everybody in the system now that's currently being, waiting on a disbursement for assistance. But we can't continue to take applications because we wouldn't have the resources to meet the demand. So we had to cut it off at some point. It did concern me that we have a pretty good system in place right now. We did want to demobilize to remobilize again because that would, obviously add time and cranking things back up. So but we'll have enough resources in place to disperse the $5.2 million when we do get it from the Treasury, and we don't know when we will be receiving that. But it's in the mail, so to speak, but we haven't got it yet. Okay, the next item, juvenile detention statistics. We have 21 children in a detention center. We have 6 17-year-olds. We have 5 that will be going into OJJ custody, and we have 8 assigned to CCC. And those for the most egregious crimes that shouldn't be a part of the regular detention system. Also, you should get your financial report for the 2021 financial report for December should be at your station. And also, under commission requests, Commissioner Jackson asked me to do a comparison between Ford Street and the Tim James project. I provided you a copy of that. And I also provided you a copy of the administrator's recommendation regarding right sizing. I know you have on your agenda today Resolution 11 that you'll be talking about that. And I'd like to have the opportunity to make comments at that time when you consider that legislation. That concludes my report for the day. Unless you have anything for me, I can take care of it right away for you.
I think you've got a couple of questions. I will ask you, Dr. Wilson, be sure and get on the board on that resolution
Yes,
when you
sir.
want to speak.
Yes, sir.
Just so we don't miss you. Let's see, Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, Woody or whoever can answer this for me. Did you, I noticed, and I see Mr. Bogan here, who he's here in his capacity with Mount Canaan, but also serves as a representative for Grace Project. I noticed that one of the organizations was called out, singled out for working with this program. Have you or anybody on your team had an issue with any of the organizations, Grace in particular, while working with this program?
I guess, let me say this, then I'll answer that question for you.
Okay.
All the partners that we work with contributed to the success of the program.
Okay.
Now, we've had, some did a better job than others in terms of documentation.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say specifically, Grace probably lacked in documentation,
Mhm.
but otherwise, they did assist the people in that program.
Did y'all reach out to them for the documentation?
Yes, sir, we did.
And have they adequately provided documentation to
Not
you?
yet, sir.
Okay. But y'all do have a mechanism to reach out to them and obtain the documentation?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yeah, we had corresponded with them several times through email and asked for the documentation to be able to trace where the money was actually being spent as the guidelines that Treasury
Right.
requires.
And that's basically to document the payroll?
Yes, sir.
that
Well,
they-
actually, it was the startup initial cost.
The startup
Attorney
initial.
Frazier, am I right on that point?
Yeah.
It was a startup cost.
Right.
We give everybody.
Everybody got
some-
across the board
Right, that's
startup
correct.
costs?
That's correct. That
And
was for.
that was to cover, to help them get started with
Yes,
their
sir, that's
payroll,
correct.
purchase some things?
That's correct. We didn't assume that everybody was equally equipped to start. So we did talk to our community partners, and they said help in that area would be greatly appreciated.
Mhm.
And we allowed that to go forward because we were trying to get it up and running.
Mhm. But I did hear you say that every organization received a lump
Yes,
sum?
yes, sir. Every organization received $10,000.
Okay, all right.
Every organization. And every organization contribute to the overall success of the program.
And did y'all have to cut anybody off during the program?
No, sir, we didn't cut anybody off.
Okay. But it's typically normal when we're doing these reports that we have to get,
Yes, sir, that's correct.
we have to get this documentation in.
That's correct.
And it's usually several back and forth sometimes to get the reports in.
That's correct. And no customer of the 14,000 we serve said they were displeased with any particular organization.
Okay.
That's our partner.
Thank you.
Okay.
Also noticed, I've kind of skimmed your letter here.
Yes, sir.
I noticed I asked for a comparison, but it seems like all I got was a contrast.
Well,
I didn't get
actually-
anything comparing.
Okay. Well, I did my best to do the comparison.
Okay.
And at the end of this statement, I did say if you need anything more technical, we will probably have to get an engineering firm to do that for us.
Okay, well, didn't you invite LADOTD?
Yes, sir, I
mean,
did.
Are they coming up now, or are they coming up?
Well, he's here.
So when do you plan to bring them up? Do you plan to bring them up after your statement
well-
on the resolution, or do you plan to bring them up now?
So, sir, what's your pleasure? You like to hear from him now?
No,
Do
I
the
didn't invite
resolution?
them. I didn't invite them. Administration invited them.
Well, at your request.
No, it was at Commissioner Chavez's request. I didn't make a request.
Okay. Whoever requests for DOT to come here, they're here today, and they're here to answer any questions you may have relative to right sizing.
It doesn't matter to me when
Yeah.
they come. They can come later on them.
They can come
Well,
now. We have the pleasure of the board.
We're discussing
We
now,
can
we might
wait.
as well just go ahead and take it up.
Yeah, we can wait until we get to the resolution.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because I think there'll be more comments. I certainly like to make some comments as well. Perhaps it'd be a good time to have DOT make their comments as well.
During
When
the
you consider the
resolution?
legislation.
Okay, all
That's
right.
it for me.
Okay.
You done, Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see who we got. Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Wilson?
Yes, sir.
Regarding our juvenile detention population,
Yes, sir.
I think you'll probably recall last year, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I think you'll probably recall last year we talked about arranging a meeting with the sheriff to see what steps could be taken to make conditions for the juveniles at CCC more humane and appropriate to their age. Can you give me an update on that conversation?
Yes, sir. We had Attorney Bernstein, Ms. Erica Bryant and I met with the sheriff along with the chief deputy to talk about this issue. And the sheriff's concern was that he was so short on personnel, he had to actually put the kids into areas where the adults were located as well. Because when the kids were in the area by themselves, there were some kids that had gang affiliations, and that didn't go well. They would fight among themselves. So to be able to manage them properly, he had to split them up. And I spoke to the sheriff even most recently last Thursday. Had the opportunity to have lunch with the sheriff, and he told me he was 75 deputies short. So there's a tremendous staffing problem that prohibits him from having a separate area within CCC to only house kids. So that's very problematic for him, as
Okay.
well as for us.
Yes, I understand. Thank you. I hope that you will keep thinking about ways that we could try to improve the situation there.
Yes, sir. We
I
did.
don't have an answer right now.
Yes, sir. We did talk about providing them the same level of services that we provide them at the detention center. And certainly right now, because of the current situation, it wasn't doable. And we desire to have that, but because of the shortage in manpower, and then also the volatility of kids that have gang affiliations in the same place, prohibit that from going forward.
Okay, thank you. We'll hopefully talk about this more in
Yes,
in
sir.
committee and in the future.
Yes, sir. We will continue to monitor it. as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Epperson.
Oh, I'm
Chairman,
sorry.
Did
Yeah.
you appoint anyone to the commission's broadband committee? Do we know we have a committee?
I don't think we have we didn't, Mr. Clerk, we didn't form a broadband committee, did we?
We did form a broadband committee, and it was on your end of the year appointments, and a couple other times we did send a prompt to get committee members. At this point, we've only received one nomination.
So we were asking, thank you for refreshing my memory. As you recall, Commissioner Epperson, we were asking for appointments.
Okay,
and
I sent in an appointment.
You must be the one.
But my concern is, I don't think we should sit here and wait on the chamber. I think it's important. We received notifications that there's funding. I think the governor had a teleconference today relative to broadband. So the guy that I appointed, I informed him and had him to tune in on it. So that's something we need to get clicking on. And I would hope maybe you could do that as new business or something today so we can get running. We don't need to wait on no umbrella with the chamber or whatever it is. Because I got a constituent that just texted me and told me that they were on a parking lot trying to view the meeting because they had issues with their internet service. Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
Hey, Commissioner
thank you.
Atkins? Sir, I feel to give you one more report, and this is a commissioner request. The number of COVID related events we've had in the last month by agencies as well as internally. Internally, we've had 29 positive COVID cases within our organization. We have 4 contacts with a total of 33 events combined. We've reached out to 13 agencies that we currently fund, and the 7 out of the 13 reported data for us. We, for example, the tax assessor reported having two exposure events, 2 confirmed events of having COVID. The clerk of court at the courthouse had 3. The district attorney reported 13, and the Vivian Health Center reported 2. We have not heard from the sheriff's department within the courthouse, nor CCC, and also the coroner also reported 0 cases, and we haven't heard yet from David Raines Community Action Agency and LSU's Ag Center. So we are still trying to get information from them. So 13 agencies, we heard from 7 out of the 13.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Commissioner Gage Watts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Wilson,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
may or may not have the answers to some of these questions. You may have to get back with me. But are you, or do you know how many commissioned deputies there are in the sheriff department in Caddo Parish?
Say that again, ma'am.
How many commissioned deputies are there at the sheriff department in Caddo Parish?
Oh, I don't have that number, but I can find out for you. You know,
All right.
because he told me Thursday at lunch he was short 75, and I understand the city of Shreveport is about 100 plus officers short.
I understand there's shortages everywhere.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
my specific question is how many are actually commissioned?
That's correct.
Also, who are the attorneys that are compensated to assist citizens who are facing eviction?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner, there were 3 attorneys that were contracted to do that, and their contracts were ended on January 31st, but December 31st, but we do have one that has still been active. They were Jeremy Babers, Thomas Mayfield, and Alonzo Jackson. And they are not compensated unless they actually assist someone.
And just to be clear, only one is still currently under contract?
Yes, we're getting him back under contract because he has assisted some people since January 31st.
Okay. Do you have a number of how many people have received those services?
I have, let's see, including an invoice that we got today, I believe it's gonna be 3, maybe 4.
How was the public notified of this assistance?
It was placed on a website, and I think that was advertised back through here. I know at our meetings, it may have been advertised, however, the program was advertised once it started.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's on the website too, the ERAP website.
It is on the ERAP
That
website.
website, if they need legal help, they can reach out to these individuals.
Even after the deadline of tomorrow of the program that will be actually closing?
There was not any deadline placed on that, and so if there needs to be a statement that's clear, that's fine. Now, I don't know if everyone understands that persons who are eligible for assistance with the eviction mitigation have to be ERAP participants. And so it's only for the people who have participated. Also, too, one of the problems that we have is some people do not call the attorneys or did not call Mr. Jackson until like 3 days before their court date. So that presented a problem with him because he was confronted and ended up helping some people that he met for the first time last week. And I think the ones that he knew beforehand had called him for a consultation on the 10th for a court date on the 13th.
Understood. And if they have not already applied, is it too late
For
them to apply for rental assistance?
rental assistance or
Yes.
mitigation?
Rental assistance.
Tomorrow.
That,
Tomorrow is a cutoff, Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
on receiving any additional applications after tomorrow. Beyond that, we will not receive any more because we will not have sufficient funds to fund those applications
Thank you.
unless we get, some money, additional money from the Treasury Department to do it.
As expected, but at this time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we actually had a record of that and let the public know exactly where we're going with this process.
Yes,
We've
ma'am.
gotten a lot of calls today in specific about rental assistance and facing evictions as well.
Yes, ma'am. We did do a press release last week, and the same statements on our website, but we can try to make sure we run it as many times as we can on our Facebook page.
That would be great.
Yes, ma'am.
Also, are there any updates on the testing kits for citizens?
On the what?
The testing kits, the COVID testing kits?
Oh, no, ma'am, we requested it last week.
Yeah.
And do you have an update, Erica?
No, that's what,
No,
we did
we
put
put-
in our request.
We went into
for-
GoSaf
Yeah.
and put in a request to Homeland Security, and they don't know when we will get those devices, but we did request them.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Gage Watts. Commissioner Vice President Burrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to something that Commissioner Epperson mentioned about broadband. The chamber is not driving the commission in terms of broadband. We have our own committee. When we set it up, we asked that you all would give recommendations. Since I have not heard from anybody, I'm not going to stand still. I started looking for people that are professional in those areas, similar to what Bossier is doing for trying to establish a committee. And I've requested the administration, if there's any information out there, hopefully the administration, they get paid full-time, that they would, make me aware of it as chairman. And also, we have an IT person who is pretty much on top of that, and I don't think that who is Tracy Calloway, in which he did not inform me of the meeting that you talked about with the governor. I guess with broadband being new, you're going to get conferences, press conferences, and that type of thing. But we're trying to secure information to see where we can go with this in Caddo Parish. So that's why we established our own committee rather than the Chamber of Commerce. But we work with the Chamber of Commerce also because they do have an umbrella organization. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to ask administration a question. How many parishes in the state of Louisiana have a detention center?
Have what?
A detention center, juvenile detention center.
In our area, our region, we're the only one in our region.
Okay,
Because
so
Bossier doesn't have one.
I've been
This-
told it's only 4, maybe 5
Well,
in the whole state.
Quake here? Quake is here. You can give me a specific, but I know DeSoto doesn't have one. Bossier, Red River Parish, there's not a whole lot.
I'll drive to my point once I get the answer.
Oh, okay.
There are 14 statewide. Most large jurisdictions like Shreveport and New Orleans, East Baton Rouge have their own. Most smaller jurisdictions share. Red River and Coshada has one that rents to like 9 different parishes, including Bossier.
Okay, so there's 14 out of 64 parishes.
That's correct.
Okay. And then in some of those parishes that don't rent out to anybody, where those juveniles go?
They ultimately rent, the law allows them to keep a child in an adult facility for a short period of time, but they're ultimately going to be renting a bed from somewhere. There's 4 or 5 different detention centers that actually are in the business of renting beds.
Okay. So if we needed to rent a bed, we can actually rent a bed. But if we got a facility where there's an empty section, then you could put them over there with the proper resources.
It's always problematic, Commissioner Johnson, meeting the state detention requirements. That's the linchpin in this whole deal. Not just having an empty facility, but being able to meet the facility requirements of the state. Is that
Right.
correct, Clay?
Yes, so the bottom line is, at one point, we did come up with a number that we would need to rent if we had to rent beds. It was over $2 million, and it was money, we don't have that money either. In terms of putting them in an empty facility, we would have to staff that, in the same way we staff juvenile detention. So all
Well,
of
I'm
those
saying,
requirements.
right now, they over in CCC. And you
Yes.
have resources over there at CCC. CCC meets the guidelines of the state,
No, sir, not for juveniles.
so why we have them over there?
The judges have made an exception in the one case that went to court. Mr. Bernstein was there. The judges have made an exception for it.
Yeah, because of the level of crimes that's committed
Right.
warrant their stay there, because we didn't want to have them associated with kids out there for misdemeanor minor issues dealing with someone on capital murder.
I got that. So
Yeah.
basically CCC meets the requirements to have them over there because
As an adult.
of the
But we
crime
have
that
to-
was committed.
As an adult, but we have to have a hearing every 30 days with the district judge to continue to stay.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that, the public knows what's going on
Yes, sir.
on that piece of it.
Yes, sir.
On the attorneys that we did have for the mitigation, I think they could have been out a little bit more in front instead of being more passive.
Okay.
I know one person was trying to call them and didn't get an answer for a while. That could have been one of the cases you just got to talking about, having a trial on the 13th and was notified on the 10th, but they was trying to notify them. I do believe, and this is a reoccurring issue, of our website is not something that a lot of people look at. And we can't just rely upon that to be, that's how we got it out to the public.
That was not we did some other advertising through social media.
I can't hear you.
Speak up, Erica.
The website was not our only source. We did social media, we did Facebook, we did interviews, as well as the website. That was not the only source. We have to remember that the eviction mitigation, again, was only for ERAP participants. And
Right.
most of those participants, once they started receiving regular payments, were not having issues with eviction assistance. Now, here lately, we have had a group of folks at a particular site that have had issues, but some of those individuals are not on our program. The eviction mitigation is for only participants in the ERAP program.
Right, I get all that.
All right, and just one, we didn't just use the website only.
Okay, but I just think that the public is not following what we're putting out, whether it be Facebook, social media, website. There has to be some other means, I believe. And I believe that means really should be the media, like 3612, 3345. They should be the ones that help, because a lot of people will watch the news if they don't turn on the computer, or they might not even have a computer, but they will watch the news to find out what's going on in town, who got shot, who done stabbed this person, who done whatever. So I just think that we might need to start utilizing the local news media for more of this information. And even if they don't put it out when we initially try to do it, have a meeting with the news directors so that we can get this kind of information on the news to help the citizens of Caddo Parish.
It was on the news, but we can revisit with them to put it out there again, but we did do interviews on the news stations.
Yeah,
for
because some of the
them.
news stations use that little stroller at the bottom.
Right, no, we actually did an interview.
And that
so-
could be something that they could utilize that information on that news stroller.
All right, well, we will reach out to them just to reiterate, but we have in the past provided the information and did interviews, so we'll, after your meeting on Thursday, because you all are voting again to carry over those funds for the eviction mitigation, after that meeting on Thursday, providing that is approved, then we'll work with Crystal to reach out again.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Epperson.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, just for a point of information, one of my constituents just informed me, I think President Biden is coming out with the free kits, and it's out now. Special, SPECIAL .USPS.com /test kits. 4 kits per household at no cost. special.usps.com/test kits. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. That's helpful information. All right, Dr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. Just want to add a comment to the concern that Commissioner Epperson brought up about broadband. The commission, we did submitted 3 letters of support to internet providers seeking to get a part of the Gumbo grant. The Gumbo grant was designated by the state of Louisiana to make it a competitive process for local service providers to be able to get money to help underserved areas of our parish, the rural areas. So we did give out 3 letters of support, and we're hoping once the dust is settled, and that we'll be able to identify some gaps where you can reuse the remaining $2 million to set aside out of ARP money to help fill those gaps.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
You're welcome, sir.
And, Commissioners, Epperson, that information on the testing kits, we have posted out on all our media platforms for the citizens to be aware of that website, of that link.
Pardon?
It's
The
posted.
information you provided, we have, Ms. Beecham has posted that on the various media platforms for the parish, for the citizens to be aware of that link.
All right. Let's see. Commissioner Epperson's back on the board.
Dr. Wilson, remember, I think a while back, we had the information about the thousands of orphan wells in Louisiana?
Yes, sir.
And the funding for mitigation of getting them plugged and located. I think they are now under the, this Infrastructure Act that's just been passed by Congress. I believe they're looking at funding for that now. I saw on the news the other day, so if you would research that.
Yes, sir. So I have one of my staff members do that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Clerk, where does that leave us? Are we at, that takes us out of administrative report and we're at commission remarks, is that correct?
Yes, unless you yes.
Yeah,
It seems we sort of bled in a little bit there.
I was gonna suggest that if someone has a communique that they really need to communicate now, fine, go ahead and get on the board. If something can wait, I might encourage us to wait till we don't have such a full agenda. But I don't want to squelch anybody. If you got something to say,
Oh, we could have just kept
get
it
on the
at
board.
Oh, we could have just
Not-
kept it at the bottom for the
Not
ladies like
seeing
that.
anyone for communiques at this point.
That brings us to President's report, if you had any.
The only thing I'll say is I will reiterate what Commissioner Epperson was pointing out about the need to get our broadband committee in shape. We did not populate that as part of the regular commission president's committees. But if anyone has anybody that they want to be considered for the broadband committee, please submit that to the clerk so we can flesh out that committee. Briefly, Commissioner Burrell.
And one other thing too, if they have expertise in that area, that's so important. It's one thing to sit there and listen, but it's another thing that you have something to contribute from the standpoint of some
Relevant
particular
expertise.
interest.
Yeah. All right, so that's all I had to say. We've moved beyond communiques, but communiques, but Commissioner Jackson, you have some quick?
No, my button wasn't working or something, but I definitely was reaching for it.
Can't
I
hear.
said my button wasn't working, but I definitely was reaching for it. Dr. Wilson, there's a young lady who's trying to open an event center or marriage hall on Wells Island Road, the one little strip of piece of property that I have outside of the city limits.
Yes, sir.
We've created a situation, self-inflicted wound,
Right.
where, oh, you agreeing?
Yes.
Okay. It's the reality.
Right.
And she's in a bind. If you could get with Mr. Clark.
I've already done that to give her a refund.
Well, she's got a refund. I think he has some ideas that
Okay.
can get her over the hump
Okay.
to resolve the issue. He was waiting
Okay.
to hear from the parish on how she can resolve that issue. So if you could reach out to him and ask him to help
Is that how we can resolve it?
how to resolve it. I think he had some ideas about how to resolve it. But that's the reality of a lot of small businesses that are trying to do anything out in the parish right now is they're in a gray area.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner John. Pardon me, Commissioner Jackson. Mr. Clerk,
All right, that brings us to old business, and the only item we have under this section today is the authorizing the introduction of ordinance number 6154 of 2022. That's in relation to zoning case 21-35-P. You'll recall that was a zoning item that was on our last agenda, but it was deferred so that the District 12 representative could be present when it was discussed. I think it had just come up late in the meeting, and he may have already left.
Commissioner Epperson.
Move for advancement to third agenda.
Second.
I got a motion to advance by Commissioner Epperson, a second by Commissioner Hopkins, I think it was. Any comment on this? Anything else to add, Commissioner Epperson?
At no point have I received any concerns or complaints from all the people in and around the area that was notified of this change. The policy that we've been using for years in the past, it appears that it is working, and I would recommend approval on Thursday unless something come up.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Jackson?
Yeah, I'd like to make a substitute motion to englobo and advance 6154, 6174, 6175, and 6176. And then I'd like to be added as a co-author on 6176.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who was that the second from?
I like Chavez.
I heard Chavez?
Chavez. All right, a motion to englobo and advance 6154, 6174, 6175, and 6176 with a second by Commissioner Chavez. Any other discussion? Commissioner Gage Watts?
Yes, I would also like to be added as a sponsor on 6176.
Okay, so we had Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Gage Watts, and Commissioner Burrell asking to be added as sponsors on 6176. If we have no more discussion, we'll call for a vote.
Okay, and that motion passes with 11 in support and 1 absent. And that brings us to the next item. I'm sorry, I just noted that wrong. Okay, that brings us to the next item, which is authorizing the introduction of ordinance number 6177 of 2022. That's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Oil and Gas Fund and the Riverboat Fund to provide an appropriation of $32,000 for a mural program and otherwise provide with respect thereto, from Commissioner Jackson.
Move to advance, and while sending it to the Economic Development Committee for review.
Okay, we have a motion to advance with also a request for it to go to the Economic Development Committee for review. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Burrell. Any other comments, Commissioner Jackson?
No, I think whatever the committee decides to do, whether they adjust it up or down or leave it the same, I
Okay.
think we can visit it at that time.
All right, seeing no one else on the board, we can clear the board, Mr. Clerk, and go for, and we can ask for a vote, please.
It should be ready for the vote. All right, and that motion passes unanimously with 12 in support. And just, I don't know if you saw Ms. Gage Watts was on the board. Is that an
I was
old?
gonna ask them to clear it. That was from the previous.
That was my
Yeah,
understanding.
I need to clear it in the queue.
Okay, got it.
Do I do that, or does he do that?
You should be able to.
All right.
Okay, that brings us to the next item on our agenda, authorizing the introduction of ordinance number 6178 of 2022.
Mr. President.
Just briefly, I would also interject that we have moved into new business, for the record. I know that y'all know that, but the Englobo brought us from old business into new business, and just for anyone following at home.
Never say I was about being on time.
What's
Never say I was the person holding.
Just
it.
want to make sure we noted that in the record. Okay, we are at 11.5, authorizing the introduction of ordinance number 6178 of 2022. That's an ordinance to repeal sections 32-160 through 32-167 of the Caddo Parish Code of Ordinances regarding noise violations and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. President, I'd like to move to Englobo and advance 6178, 6179, 6180, 6181, 6182, 6183, 6184, 6185, and that's it.
Okay, we have a motion to englobo and advance 6178, 6179, 6180, 6181, 6182, 6183, 6184, 6185.
Second?
We had a second from, who was that, Commissioner Epperson?
Yes.
Okay, we had a motion from Commissioner Jackson, a second from Commissioner Epperson. Any comments, Commissioner Jackson?
Yes, I absolutely do have some comments. You know, I think some folks have said that I have, you know, tried to slap the fine citizens of the rural area in the face, which means I would be slapping my friend Todd Hopkins in the face. And I wouldn't dare do that. Mr. Clerk, can you play that video? Do y'all have the video ready?
I do, one moment.
As they're getting that video ready, I'm just saying that what I have consistently tried to figure out is what is it that we want as it relates to zoning, regulations, and things of that nature. A lot of us have been called some pretty ugly things up here around this issue, and for no reason at all. We've tried to figure out what it is that the rural areas, and I think their commissioners were on the path to trying to figure that out. But we've been bombarded for the last 3 or 4 weeks with folks saying they don't want anybody touching their property rights. We've had videos made about us saying they don't want anybody messing with their property rights. And at no point did anybody ever try to make a distinction between property rights and zoning. There have just been a mass cadre of folks saying, don't mess with my property rights. And the reality is, to say that we're gonna live in a society, a lawless society, is simply unimaginable and unbelievable. And then, you know, the other thing to me is that we've had a lot of folks who have been quiet on this issue. I got called out by a sector of this community, a business sector of this community, for seconding the motion and supporting the move forward of the repeal of the UDC. And then I had a developer that's building $250,000 homes in the northern part on the perimeter of my district call me and chew me out because he said what we're about to do is violate an agreement that he thought he had with local government, which was to build those nice homes with the protection that he would have zoning, which is literally right across the street, out in an unincorporated area of the parish. I always use Commissioner Gates Watts for this example because I think it's a very fine development. But we have a lot of places around here where if we don't have some level of regulation or rules, we'd have a lawless society. But, you know, a lot of folks have called me out for introducing this, but I just want to, I want us to hear what is being said out in the public.
You may go ahead and play.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, and it looks like our last presentation may have switched the mode of input, so it may take a second for it to play correctly, but it should play.
Know that we want Ordinance 60.
I don't see it coming up on your screens just yet. Linda, does the control room have it? Sorry, we're having to unplug it and replug it, one of those reset kind of things.
I just want folks to know that this concept didn't fall out the sky. And what I think we need to figure out is get clarity on who wants what and where do they want it. Right, so this is Mr. Representative Danny McCormick, who is a state representative. And so this concept didn't fall out the sky.
71. They'll know what you're talking about. They've been getting plenty of phone calls today about that. We're not compromising with our private property rights in Caddo Parish. They're ours. They belong to us. The commission is not going to take them away from us and then sell them back to us in the form of a permit. So, great meeting. Love being a leader in your community. Love the way you show up to defend your liberties. Like we discussed last night, you can't save this country till you save this state, and you can't save this state till you save Caddo Parish. You can do something about what's happening in Caddo Parish, and this is an act.
That's one video.
Okay, and
I think the arrow, Jeff. There's an arrow.
Yeah, sorry, it's a little hard for me to, there we go.
Done my due diligence. We have given out books to read. We have done PowerPoints. The hundreds of people have sent emails letting them know that rural Caddo Parish property rights belong to the property owners, and we can take care of our own property. We don't need them regulating them. I'm sorry to have to bring this kind of news right here at Christmas time, but those that would impede on our private property rights, they do it at awkward times. So just stay tuned. We're hoping that our Caddo Parish commissioners hang in there for us and protect our private property rights. But right now, it's looking kind of iffy. They had a meeting today, and in that meeting, it was brought up.
So, as I close, I just want to point out that before I put these on the agenda, thank you, Jeff. Before I put these on the agenda, I questioned whether I should do this because, and I called the parish attorney, I called several folks and said, should I do this? And they were lost on what exactly do we want, or what do the rural residents want. And so you can't say that you want no regulation. You only want to you don't want anybody regulating private property without having any of these as well. So here we are, and I think we need to determine where do we want to go. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I first got elected to office, I was getting phone calls that we had laws on the books that didn't have no teeth to them, and that things wasn't happening. The only reason that this even brought any attention is because we enforced what was on the books. They sent people out to write citations on things that was happening. The UDC had existed for 2 years before we sent somebody out. We had 6 months that I prolonged it in the commission before it even passed, trying to get public input. But everybody was like, it don't bother me, so I ain't worried about it. Until we sent those officers out to do the citations. And then this is when all this happened. So whether we go back to what we had, those, until we start putting people out and enforcing those laws, they'll be back down here again complaining about those. But I'm not gonna live in a parish where you don't have no rules, because it will get out of hand. So I'm gonna not support repealing all of this. Have at least that in place, because that's better than having nothing at all. I tried to explain to people, they were saying about their covenants. We got covenants here, we got covenants there. A covenant is good within the neighborhood, but once you take across the street, I can put a dog pound across the street, or I can put a manufacturing plant across the street, and you can't do nothing about it. With all the pristine covenants you have in your neighborhood, you still won't be able to do nothing about what's across the street. They don't realize that. Lakeview is one of the worst neighborhoods in the parish because it has no covenant. So you have from a single wide trailer to $4 and $5 million houses all in the same neighborhood. All you gotta do is turn one way or turn the other way. And so that creates a problem. And so I will not support those, keep those in place until we can come up with something that's better than those and not as worse as UDC. Because when you first saw the UDC, it was ridiculous. you can buy a tract of land and you cannot cut down all the trees on your own land. I said, no, I'm not gonna support nothing like that, because somebody bought that land, they can cut whatever trees they want down and plant whatever trees they want to plant in this place. What I have a problem with, one of the groups that came down here that was arguing with us all the time about these laws in place, the property rights, their property rights. Well, they was coming to the commission about property rights, but then going to the city council, on the other hand, and keeping somebody from developing an area right on the outside of the Cooper Road. So how can you do that? You either for property rights or you're against property rights. If I own this tract of land and you say that you don't want to have no property rights, I can do whatever I want to do on it. But what they did was selective. We talking about our property. Now we're gonna help support this neighborhood here and keep this from being developed over here. That's not right. You gotta be on one side of the fence or the other. So with property rights, yeah, there are some restrictions. Let's roll with them, let's strengthen them some more, and let's move forward instead of doing all this other stuff.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Palmentarian Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to point out that the Long Range Planning Committee appointed a Citizens Advisory Council committee to make recommendations about what kind of level of regulation they want in Caddo Parish. All regulations exist in degree. They're not absolute. None is a binary 0 or 1. Zoning regulations are the most comprehensive and restrictive form of land use regulations, and they are specifically disclaimed as undesirable by the committee and the report that we got that was voted on in the Long Range Planning Committee. That report specifically said that ordinances such as these, which are listed for potential repeal, were the level of regulation that they preferred for the place where they live. And so I don't think that claiming to repeal them moves the conversation forward constructively. So I'm going to vote against them. Thanks.
Vote against. Okay, Commissioner Vice President Burrell.
Mr. Chairman, this kind of thing becomes so political. I guess that's why we're in the political positions. But at the same time, I'm new to the commission, and I'm familiar with state law and city ordinances. But as I understood it, even out in the parish beyond our city limits, there are regulations. We do have some sort of codes that are out there. And I understand the people who came who didn't want the UDC, that was more restrictive than what we already have out there in the rural area. But there are still rules for development and other things, zoning out in the rural area. It was my understanding, and I repeat this probably for the third time, that the MPC said that they were modifying those rules that were out in the rural to not make it as stringent as the UDC itself, but a modification of the UDC or the existing rules that are out in the rural. And I know he presented a draft to us early on, which almost matched what was there originally. They weren't complaining about the rules that were out there before this UDC thing came. And I know the MPC, Alan Clark, the director, did his due diligence to try to modify what was out there in the rule being used by using examples from other areas, rural areas. And it appears that they rejected that too. So I'm sort of back to Commissioner Johnson's statement. Well, either you want rules or you don't want rules. You can't have it both ways. So we need to go back and work with the MPC on getting some sort of modification of what's out there now so it would be less stringent upon the people who are living in that area. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Epperson.
Call for the question on the
Second.
motion.
Second.
We have a call for the question by Commissioner Epperson and a second by Commissioner Jackson, I believe it was. Any comment on that? We have a vote on that? It's a vote on call for the question. a yes vote says we move forward with the original motion. Looks like we've got,
Okay, so that, yes, 11, and no is 0. So that unanimously advances 6178 through 6185.
no, that was the
That's
call for the question.
Oh, for the call for the question? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That is the call for the question. So we revert to the motion on the floor, which was the in globo and advance 61 through 78 through 6185.
So just to be clear, yes vote in this case advances this to Thursday, and no vote does not advance it. Everybody vote.
And that motion fails with 1 in support and 11 in opposition.
Okay, so those items will not advance to Thursday. Okay, Mr. Clerk, where are we?
That brings us, one moment, that brings us to 6186, authorize introduction.
6186 and 6187.
I'm sorry?
Move to approve 6186 and 6187.
Okay, we have a
To-
motion
to
to approve by
advance.
Commissioner Jackson. And did I hear a second?
Just to advance. I second it.
Sorry, move to advance. Movement by Commissioner Jackson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Jackson, any comments?
No.
Okay. Anyone on the board? Can we get the regular board back up, Commissioner Clerk? Commissioner Clerk?
1 second. Okay.
So we have a motion to advance ordinance number 6186 and 6187. Seeing, Commissioner Epperson's on the board
No, I push yes to,
to vote? All right, well,
Vote.
that will clear that. Let's clear that and do a vote, Commissioner Clerk.
And you should be.
Waiting for a
Yeah, we'll
ballot.
vote
There we
now.
go.
All right, and that motion carries with 12 in support and none in opposition. And that brings us to the next item, which is authorizing introduction of ordinance number 6188 of 2022. That's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues for the American Rescue Plan Fund to provide an appropriation for Ring Doorbell Pilot Program in Caddo Parish and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Move to advance.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts to advance with a second by Commissioner Johnson. Any comments, Commissioner Gage Watts?
I will, if necessary. I just want to give a brief introduction of what this pilot program is about. We started the conversation a couple weeks ago, I believe, and I think we just moved it to the ordinance. But the program is designed to help make our communities safer for all by purchasing up to $100,000 of Ring devices for residents in hotspot areas. The mission is to support residents in these areas that are plagued by gun violence in particular by providing an additional tool to help fight crime. We believe that the people know their communities best, and it allows us to assist them in doing their part, as well as assisting our law enforcement agencies with an additional tool. The participants must be in Caddo Parish as it is stated in the ordinance. Address is identified in targeted areas. The device will also include 1 year paid subscription costs. Applicants will receive the devices on a first come, first served basis. Of course, they must be at least 18 years old, submit the application, and agree to register with the Shreveport Crime Center to allow law enforcement access to these devices. They will need working Wi-Fi, internet connection, and must own a mobile device and not already own a Ring device. And they will be limited to 1 per household. So I ask for your support on this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Chavez?
I got a question.
Thank you, President. I think this is actually a really cool idea. I guess my only reservations would be if the citizen didn't have internet, how would we circumvent that issue? And that could be for
Commissioner
the
Gage Watts?
authors.
We have some options available through the Internet Essentials with Comcast, and I've already had the conversation with administration about that as well.
And I guess last question, would we pay the Ring company directly, or would we fund the citizen to fund Ring? And that could be for administration.
The
How can we
company.
legally fund this project?
You would do it just as we do any other, like we did the mask. We purchased the mask and gave them to the citizens. So the device will be purchased from the company.
I guess my only my worry is it's a monthly subscription, so there's got to be a billable account linked to that specific device that every month the organization, be it Ring.com, is able to pull funds from. So would we monthly ACH to the citizens account and then Ring pulls from there, or would Ring pull from us?
No, you could pay for it in advance. You could pay for the year in advance.
Okay. I'm done, President. Thank you.
It's just a year. Commissioner Johnson, I don't have a board up.
Yeah, I was gonna basically chime in on that piece, that we will pay for all that up front, because it's a pilot program. We want to see and gather all the data that we can get from this information to see if it needs to carry on as a program that will go year to year. The individuals will be in the hot zones, in those, which has, I think, Channel 3 calls, the daily zip codes. They would be in those kind of areas so that you can get the data that you actually need.
Okay, thank you. We don't have a board up. Any other commissioner representative has a point to make?
I have one. I have
Who's
one,
next?
Mr. President.
Sorry, well, I've called on Commissioner Epperson, and then we'll catch up with whoever else may be. I'm sorry, the software has crashed, so we don't have a board operating, so y'all be patient as we work through it. Commissioner Epperson.
Will this work in conjunction with what about the cameras we had set up, the hot spots or whatever it is? How does that work? Is that going?
Commissioner.
I can speak on that. We actually got approved for that, and I thank y'all for your support on that. But administration pulled them, saying it wasn't allocated under ARPA. So I don't know how these are going to fall under there as well.
Well, this is different. Mr. Commissioner Epperson, are you talking about the cameras that the city have up and they got it in the control
I thought
center?
we had something that come up, they had some kind of cameras on towers or something.
We approved it and hadn't
Yeah.
pulled it.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think we need to change the purpose of what those cameras are going to be used for. If we change the purpose, then we can get those cameras. But the purpose that you set out, you can't use it for that.
Okay, my next question is, any city or municipality in these states utilizing this program at this point in time?
They, if I may. Yes, sir. Chicago has used this program, and it was a very successful program.
Say what if, some places, people hellified on vandalizing, somebody come to the side and don't push the ring and nothing, and they just destroy the bell. We'd be responsible for that?
No, it's their device.
I've heard them shoot cameras out, security cameras, spray paint them. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins.
I guess my question is, because it says we have a few hot spots I would consider out in the parish. So that information would go to the sheriff's department, or how would we work that out?
Yes, sir. It
Okay.
would go to that law enforcement agency.
I mean, I have one of those rings, and I have the cameras and stuff, and they're very useful. I
Yes,
didn't know that.
Well, my board went out. Commissioner Jones, were you on the board?
No, I was just letting you know that
Okay.
Commissioner Hopkins was.
And Commissioner Talaferro first, and then Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of questions here. So I understand it. So we're paying for the device,
Yes.
and we don't have a specific purchase agreement with Ring. We're just using the Ring device. So in other words, we don't have a deal with Ring.
No, we don't.
Okay, to
That's
get
it.
X amount of devices at X amount of price or anything like that.
We got to pass it first.
We don't.
Who said that? What?
We got to pass it first, and then work on those.
Okay, I didn't know if anything was done previous to this. And so we're going to be paying for the subscription as well
Yes.
For a year.
for a year?
Yes.
For each device? but not for the Wi-Fi that requires the device to function.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
I just love to see how everybody's working together. And I hope we will work together on all things. Because I hadn't seen the hamster wheel come out. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Seeing no one else on the board, can we have a vote, please, Mr. Clerk? Is the voting technology working?
It
Yes.
should work.
Okay.
I want some more questions.
All right, and that motion carries with 11 in support and none in opposition. And that brings us to our next item, which is to authorize the introduction of ordinance number 6189 of 2022. That's an ordinance to enact sections 2 to 5 relative to parish-owned or maintained buildings and offices to provide that agencies, constitutional officers, and other political subdivisions occupying these buildings and offices shall report data regarding communicable diseases of concern to the public and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Move for advancement to Thursday's meeting.
Second.
Okay. Motion to advance and a second by Commissioner Epperson. The second was by whom? Commissioner Jackson. Any comments, Commissioner Epperson?
Yes, sir. I think the administrator had given his report relative to the COVID infections. And I think we had asked for this to be voluntary at some point in time earlier in the year. And I think he mentioned 13 agencies out of 13, 7 did so. And I think it's our responsibility to lead by example. COVID and any other disease that may be a hazard to the public, which we serve. We are here to serve the public. They pay for the fancy buildings we're in. They pay for all of the mitigation tools that we have in place while we are meeting, as well as all the other agencies, including a protocol for our incarceration facilities. And I think everyone should be required to give that information out to the general public where they can make a decision if they want to come in person to pay their taxes or their light bill or whatever they have to do within these public facilities in the business that they have, if they can do it online. And I think it's important that we know those numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing, Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, President. I think the board's still down. Dr. Wilson, just in regards to a rollout in this scenario and the public agencies that this would fall under, I'm envisioning maybe the coroner's office, the sheriff. How do you envision this, I guess, communication being rendered to the body or the citizens?
Sure, we have to work the details out. We have not gotten that far yet. We have to work the details out on how we would execute that.
And I guess the last question, would there be any incurred fees from the subsequent political subdivisions or bodies that of the buildings that we maintain that would put us on the hook for their expenses?
I'm not sure. You know the answer to that, Don?
I mean, if you're asking what I think you're asking,
Mm-hmm.
they would just be paying us back what we gave them in the first place. I mean, there would not be any fees for them not reporting to us. I mean, because we these are funded agencies.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess the question may be easier, if the sheriff, if we ask the sheriff for this, and then he has to put manpower on this to provide these reports and sends us a bill because we passed this, will we have to fund that bill?
I don't think a bill should be associated with information. Because other agencies have.
I agree with that.
Other agencies have provided that information already.
we would,
7 out of 13 has.
we would argue no, but that leads to the question: what would be the enforcement mechanism?
Right.
Should it, you do this? I mean, you don't really have a hammer.
I agree. That goes back to the first question of how would the information get disseminated to us, that we would mandate to those respective agencies.
Yeah, I think the information would be to send it to you the way I've given it to you today.
Okay. All right.
And then we could probably post it somewhere on our website too, so people can know beyond this meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Thank you, President.
Thank you. Commissioner Epson, is that an old post or is that a new post?
No, new.
Okay, Commissioner
Dr.
Epson.
Wilson, the information you give us on the agency that you've reported, where does that come from? You have a human resource department,
Yes, sir.
right?
Human Resources
Okay.
contacted.
Right. And if
The
an
res-
individual is absent, they have to state what? They are sick, they're on vacation, or what? Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, there's actually a protocol. If we have someone that's been impacted by COVID, we notify everybody in that department.
Right. Well, that's all we're asking.
Yes, sir.
Like I say, the taxpayers got all these fancy computers everywhere.
Right.
And, you know, people are already there in place. Just numbers. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask actually a question. Ms. Frazier,
Yes,
is
sir.
there any issues with privacy or any personal invasion of privacy issues
Is-
here at all?
There's no privacy, Commissioner Atkins, if I can answer that question. I'm not the lawyer, but we don't get names, we just get data.
Okay, that's just want to make sure it's just data. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Seeing no one else on the board, let's vote, please. Voting to advance or not to advance?
And that motion carries with 12 in support and none in opposition. That brings us to the next item on your agenda, which is to authorize the introduction of authorize resolution number 9 for your Thursday meeting of 2022. That's a resolution authorizing the Parish Attorney's Office to request an opinion from the Louisiana State Attorney General's Office regarding the authority of
Move
the
to
parish-
advance.
Second.
Okay, we had a motion to advance by Commissioner John Paul Young, a second by Commissioner Talifero. Commissioner Young, would you like to comment?
Very briefly, thank you, Mr. President. Louisiana Revised Statute 33103F says that a home rule charter parish may function as its own planning board if certain provisions exist in its charter. We're not sure what specificity those provisions have to have, and this AG opinion is to get a second opinion about that in addition to our attorney's opinion. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Any comments? I see no one on the board. If there's no other comments, let's vote, please. We're voting to advance to Thursday or to not advance to Thursday's agenda.
And that motion carries with 12 in support and none in opposition. That brings us to the next item, which would be authorized resolution number 10 of 2022. That's a resolution requiring all ordinances to originate from or be reviewed by Caddo Parish Commission committees and otherwise providing with respect thereto.
Move to the Personnel and Policies Procedures Committee to have a meeting before and make a recommendation our February 3rd work session.
Commissioner Johnson, or Jackson, sorry, can you please?
I'm sorry, move to the Policies and Procedures Committee and have a hearing before, a committee meeting before a committee meeting and recommendation before the February 3rd work session. February 3rd or February?
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner,
January 31st, I'm sorry.
we have a motion by Commissioner Jackson to forward this to the Personnel and Policies Committee to review and make a recommendation to the overall body on the next.
Before the January 31st work session.
And
Before,
for clarification, is this motion to essentially advance this item
No.
to February 3rd?
No.
It would just be back on the work session agenda again for consideration?
Yes. So we're just not advancing it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really going to committee.
I suppose I'm asking, so I understand that it would go to committee, but would it appear back on the next work session agenda on the 31st?
Yeah.
Okay, automatically. Okay, great. I just want to make sure I understood that.
Would it be, would it be automatic or upon the decision of the?
Committee.
The committee may not, what's the name, I may want to put it back on
Well, I mean,
The
but I'm
committee
just-
should
that's
be
why I'm
making
asking.
amendments to it if they doing.
good with it the way I
Okay,
did it.
all right, that's what I want to be sure of.
I'm good with it that way.
okay. Commissioner Clerk, could you repeat the motion, please, just to make sure we're all on the same board, same page?
Yeah, what I have is motion from Commissioner Jackson, and I'm sorry, who was there a second?
I second it.
John
Okay.
Paul Young.
Thank you. And that it was to refer Resolution 10 of 2021 to the Policies and Procedures, Personnel Policies and Procedures Committee, and postpone until January 31st work session.
Okay, we have the motion and the second. Could we please, let's see, we actually have Chavez on the board.
Thank you, President. I'd like to make a substitute motion that we remand this to the Policy and Procedures Committee. That's it. If I can get a second.
Second.
All right, thank you for that second. I'll make a quick explanation. As I hear it now, it's going to go to committee, but regardless of the discussion in committee or if that committee happens, that it will still be back on the agenda to be voted on a Thursday.
A work session.
Right.
No, it'll come back on the Monday, like it is
Back on the
today.
work session.
No.
Okay.
Can I answer that?
Come back on the work
Sorry,
session.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I can clarify. What I'm basically saying, because I can still put this back on the agenda at any time because we don't advance it. What I'm trying to get is, I'm trying to get a committee meeting before we have the next work session. That's all I'm trying to say is before we have, so this doesn't advance anywhere. It basically, essentially comes off the agenda and we send it to committee, the committee discusses it, and they make a recommendation, and if they recommend don't doing anything, then, I still have the liberty to either bring it back or do whatever, but I'm just trying to give an opportunity to have a committee here prior to.
If I may,
the work
Commissioner Shaw,
session.
it's really 6-1, one half
Right,
dozen the other, 'cause
right.
he always has the right to put it back on.
Correct. I'll withdraw my motion since it's going to the work session and not the legislative session.
Okay, thank
Right.
you. All right, so we have Commissioner Jackson's original motion on the board. Everybody ready to vote? All right, let's vote.
All right, that motion carries with 11 in support and 1 absent. And let's see. Hold 1 moment. Okay, that brings us to the next item, which is authorizing resolution number 11 of 2022. That's a resolution urging and requesting the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development to consider the inclusion of Louisiana Highway 173 from Pierre Avenue to Hartman Street in its right-sizing program and otherwise providing with respect thereto.
Move to advance to Thursday.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Jackson, a second from Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Jackson, you have any comment?
No, I'll defer.
Okay, I see Dr. Wilson on the board, and I think we have a guest on this matter.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Atkins. At this time, I'd like to have Mr. Tim Weaver come forward, and our guest, Mr. Kevin, would you please come forward? He's from DOTD.
I'm sorry, what is the name of the DOTD?
Kevin
rep-
Blanc.
Kevin Blanc, the area engineer for Caddo and River Repair.
Blanc?
Yes.
B-L-U-N-C-K.
Yes. And also, Mr. Blanc, would you just kind of provide an overview for the board on what this right size program is all about? And perhaps they may have some specific questions for you. And then I'd like to follow by Mr. Weaver giving his opinion as our Public Works Director. And then I'd like to talk to the board as the letter I give you all today, the essence of it.
Okay, the department has identified a lot of roads in the state system to be what they call right-sized, and that is if any entity would like to receive a road that a state highway that is identified as a right-size eligible roadway, then the entity can request the state to start process of right-sizing. That right size means that we bring the road up to a good or better standard, a good or better condition in the roadway, and then we give the entity a credits, capital outlay credits for 30 years. Caddo Street, I'm sure most of y'all know Caddo, Ford, 173, Hillary Huckabee. that is a road that has 7,000 ADT or 7,000 cars a day that drive on a 3-lane highway, and it's in a condition. It's a composite roadway. It's got concrete and asphalt, concrete with an asphalt overlay on it. It hasn't been overlaid in quite some time. However, the state is in a situation where we have next year's pavement preservation budget is going to be $6 million, and that's this district. That's 7 parishes. I am over Caddo and Red River Parish, and I'm basically able to get one road per year overlaid in the pavement preservation program. And that means right now, this year, we're getting LA 173 up around, I guess, Oil City onto the I-49. Next year, it will be Mansfield Road. However, Ford Street it's just got to compete with a lot of roads and a lot of bad roads, I guess you call them. So anyway, it has been discussed over the years that Caddo and Ford and Hillary Huckabee up to 220 is eligible to be right-sized, and that would mean that that's a different program than pavement preservation. If you were to authorize a right size, and we would expect that that you would authorize it from a state road to a state road. And so we've got 4 options. You've got Spring Street, you've got Spring End Market, then you've got Common, and you've got Hearn, and you've got 220. So the smallest, if you're talking about right sizing over here in front of the Head Start, the resolution is what? From Hartman to Pierre. We would really expect you to go from Hearn to Common, which would be 1.53 miles, and then we would do an overlay, repair any kind of catch basins and things that were identified, and then you would have to pass another resolution to actually accept the right size. I don't know what else you want to talk
I
about.
think that's it. I think that's it, unless some
Okay,
commissioner-
and of course, you would get, I think it's going to be, even though that's up to negotiation and going through an analysis, you get $2.8 million worth of capital outlay credits. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blunt.
Okay,
Mr. Weaver?
Yeah, one of the things on the right size, and there's a big pot of money, Caddo Commission has never wanted the right size. And I talked to Bossier Parish Police Jury, they haven't right sized because it is a credit and you're getting a road, that's heavily traveled. And, we look for roads that are less traveled. And the main thing with Ford Street, and that's the deal with the limits, I know there's been talk about you can go from this street to this street, but they like it to be from state road to state road, which encompasses a 380-foot bridge that's 80 foot wide that was built in 1983. So the replacement costs on that, I've asked for that, but probably $5 to $8 million. So, it's getting close to 40 years back then. I'm thinking, I talked to Kevin, it's like a 50-year, life on that. So that's one of the reasons, right sizing Ford Street. That's the main deal, is a big, long bridge. It's like when we have to do our swaps with the state. That's the same thing. We look for roads that are not traveled and roads that do not have bridges on it. The other main problem with the road, it's a city road. It's got city water lines. We've been talking about it for 4 years. The lines are still leaking to this date. We've had meetings. We had a meeting last March with all the players involved, and the lines are in front of the Head Start is where it's at. They're still leaking. So we have no control. We can't go work on city water lines. So that's a Now, once the water lines are finished, I mean, Kevin has said we would try to get it on the preservation program, but they're not going to overlay a road that has water leaks on it. So if the city would get their water leaks fixed, I mean, I think the road would get overlaid. So, and that's the kind of the question. And it has a whole lot of other issues with sidewalks, retaining walls, street lights, traffic lights, but it's just a very busy, and I see the concern, it's a very busy road, and in like $2.8 million would not like help us replace that bridge, in 10 to 20 years down the road. So that's kind of our, from public works standpoint.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weaver.
So, and continue with that, and then we'll entertain your questions, Mr. Jackson. The letter I sent to you all relative to this subject was pretty detailed, and there's a difference between a urban roadway system and a parish roadway system. All of them have drainage systems under them, but you see on a parish road, it's an open ditch system, so the hydrology is different. When you have a road system within an urban setting, you have a connections of piping under the road, which makes it a forced system, and the hydrology is different. And you would have to have a vacuum pump truck to clean out the ditches and things of that nature. So we don't have the equipment, the manpower, the know-how to maintain the traffic signal devices on that road. You have 55 lights. You have a forced sewer main system in the center of the road. You have lateral water supply off the center of the road too, going towards the homes on the side. So it was just too much for us to take care of, and we don't have as I say, the manpower to put into that. It's about using the right tools and methods for the right job. We haven't looked at that right size program. I had the benefit of being a public works director 16 years ago, and it's been around, and it wasn't to our strategic advantage to take on a road. And the essence of this whole program is the state was telling us they have more roads than they can take care of. We would love someone else to take care of some of the roads that we have to take care of. And then you notice the city just had a bond issue recently that they were going to go off a public bond to repair the roads. Would it be a great idea for them to go ahead and right-size this road, take the $2.8 million and repair another city road? We spend on average of $10 million a year on parish roads because we get part of the parish road tax that comes from the state. The Tim James project is going to be 1.6 miles of roads specifically in the parish designed to state standards. The city will also have to adopt part of that road too into their system. So there's a difference of apples and oranges here. But the complexity of an urban setting, we are not equipped to do. That's why I suggested that's not a suggestion, but my recommendation is that we do not go forward with the right sizing of Ford Street and look at other alternative means that we could assist the state in getting this area paved that Commissioner Jackson has pointed out to us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
also my closing comments, Ms. Pearson, I love you dearly. You and I worked together when I was the director of the maintenance department at the school board. We worked closely together. Your husband and I, when he was the director of athletics at the school board, we worked closely together, and he was very instrumental in me being the administrator today. So I truly respect you all, and no better statesperson could get a street name after him than Mr. Pearson himself.
Amen.
That concludes my comments, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Commissioner Jackson.
Kevin. I heard you say that the state will rebuild this road to good standards by the state measurements. 'Cause we had a conference call earlier today.
Yes. Well, we, right now, the 173 is in pavement condition. It's in poor and fair condition. We are proposing that we would bring it up to good or very good pavement standards. With that, that would mean patch and mill and overlay the road. Now, it has a level of service of low. That means you've got a lot of cars going through it, and so therefore, we do not, with the right size, and we don't improve the level of service. But yes, we would spend, the state would spend money to improve it, and it's not coming out of the pavement preservation, so it wouldn't come out of, the Mansfield Road project or anything. It's got its own separate thing.
So, and I just want to be very clear, because I heard Dr. Wilson talking about all the structures, all the lights. If we accept the right sizing program, that doesn't obligate us to maintain city services, does that?
Absolutely not.
We don't have to-
We do not maintain them, so therefore you would not
So
maintain.
we wouldn't have to maintain anything.
So in
that
other
y'all
words,
are-
any city street lights, that's the city. Any sidewalks, that's the city. Now, since it is curbs, we have to, and we would have to do that if we did the overlay. We would have to come in and put handicap ramps on any curb that is not up to handicap standard. Now, I know that he was saying, and everybody's saying the state standard. Well, the state standard is the federal standard, and no, we would not, we cannot, and we do not on any of our roads. We don't bring an old road up to a 2022 standard because lane widths, because of total streets, because of control of access, we wouldn't reevaluate every driveway in there. We wouldn't check the lane width to make sure that it's up to federal, state standard or to the current standard. But of course, we would make sure that that road is riding with an I or a roughness index, so it's a smooth road. And of course, once again, with that is whoever takes it, the city, the Caddo, if they do right sizing, they get to negotiate what we're going to do.
So we wouldn't be boxed into a wall.
Not anymore.
And so there's flexibility between the entity who accepts the road and the state of Louisiana.
Correct.
On how this is going to go forward. And then if we adopt this resolution, we're not going to come accept the road from y'all tomorrow, next month, or 2 months from now.
No, sir.
And my understanding from the October 12th email that I received is that the city is actually moving those water lines to the
Correct.
sidewalk.
Yes, sir.
And so they're in the process of doing all of this. This is a multi-stepped, multi-phased process.
Correct.
And I heard you say before we even accept the road, we would still have to, and negotiations can fail, right? I think y'all
Correct.
recognize that negotiations can fall
Halton
down.
failed when they.
And so this resolution does nothing but start the process
Correct.
of participating in the right sizing program.
But it requires that letter from the Caddo Commission
Correct.
or the city for the state to start
Right.
that
To start the process.
and get the monies and the
Right. So if we never
terms
start the
hashed out.
process,
You haven't.
we never will get anywhere.
Yeah.
We'll always be, we'll have Ms. Pearson, Mr. Bogan, Pastor Williams down here begging again for Caddo Ford to be right-sized. And what I want to impress upon this body is we've heard from a lot of folks who have said that this is a very traveled road. Amazon is on their way to this area. And I have supported the Beldegill water system where we had to take it over. Didn't we have to take that system over? Or I'm sorry, didn't we have to upsize their lines?
We assisted.
For the intersection.
We paid to upsize their lines. We paid to take over, we paid to repair Greenwood's water systems. We paid to help out the Lakeview water system. We paid to put a stoplight down in Southeast Shreveport. The residents in that area, they pay into the public works tax because every time they go spend money at that Walmart, that Shane's, that Louisiana that Cajun Daiquiri, whatever it is up there, that Silver Star, whenever they go up there and spend money, they're paying into that public works tax. But they never see one dime of benefit coming back to them. This resolution starts the process. It doesn't accept the road. It doesn't commit us to, does this commit us to accepting the road?
No,
It
sir.
starts the process. And what I've heard today is, we only want to do the least amount of work. Don't give us anything else extra. Don't make us do any more than what we're already doing. If it's too tedious, if it's too tough, why are we running away from helping citizens? Citizens who deserve services that we say we provide. We're in the roads and streets business. But absolutely nothing obligates us to taking care of the other issues on that street. All of it is up for negotiation. I would ask that we move this forward to Thursday and we start this process. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Hey,
Commissioner.
Mr. President, I need to get back on the board.
Commissioner
I mean,
Chavez.
I didn't know I was here to debate administration.
No, I'm just giving
I
y'all
mean,
the-
but
just
we
giving y'all
got
the-
your letter. We got your letter.
I think the
All right,
board,
that's,
of
let
the
me
board.
take, hold on.
I mean, I'm just saying,
I've got the floor. You've spoken. We all listened, and you're back on the board. No, you're not. If you need to get back on the board, get back on the board. We have Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, President. I just had a couple questions. The gentleman from DOT, he said that it doesn't improve the level of service, and I missed that. What does that mean? Doesn't improve the level of service?
Level of service is a A through F classification that the federal government classifies. And a level of service, A would be free-flowing, you have no obstructions. B, it slows down. C, on to F, where it's gridlock traffic. So all roads have a level of service, and a lot of it is dictated by how many cars, how many left turns, right turns, and how many lanes, how wide they are, or what have you. So when we're talking about right size, and whatever the size of the road is, then that is the size of the road. We wouldn't propose to widen it or allow it to be 6-laned, even though it's 3 lanes right now.
What's the current level of service rated A through F on this specific street?
There's some C sections and there's some D sections. And usually that level of service that it's reported like that means it's during the peak hours.
Okay.
So it's not consistently throughout the day, but at 5 p.m. it does go down to not gridlock, but stop and go, and slower than the speed limit.
I got it. Okay, so level of service is like the flow. How do you rate the condition of the street itself? Is it an A through F?
No.
How-
Well, yes and no, but really there's an actual numerical score, 100 to 0, and they have this machine that runs every 2 to 4 years over all the state highways, and it talks about the roughness, it talks about the ruts, cracks, and faults. I believe this one is a 46.
Is one Texas streets to 100 Louisiana streets?
No, the I-20 at Texas, at the Texas line that we just built, that's a 99. Texas Street, I believe, is at 80 something.
I meant the state of Texas, as in the quality of the roads. Are we Louisiana at 0 and Texas at 100, or how's the flow?
It depends on what road, you know.
But you said this one is 46,
Yeah.
and in an acceptable road where we wouldn't have the citizens down here talking about having to wear their seatbelts in the bumps would be at, we're looking at maybe a 75.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, and
But in theory, when the city of Shreveport fixes the water valves, the 4 or 5 water valves, moves the water line out and gets the sewage line fixed, and I can go out there and actually confidently put 2 inches of hot mix on it, I should get it up to about an 85. Now, if a contractor comes out there and we mill and we patch and we spend money on it, we can get it up to about a 99, you know?
that's a great segue to my second question is on 4th Street, and nobody will ever say that Commissioner Jackson is not a champion for his neighborhood, let me tell you. He works hard for the people over there. Ford Street, is it a city street or is it a state street?
It's a state highway.
Okay.
It's LA
So-
173.
So the responsibility is within the state of Louisiana, not the city of Shreveport, to overlay this street. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. But you guys only have enough, I guess, in your budget to overlay one street in this district per year?
One road, yes.
Okay. So.
Well, no, not the district, in the parish.
Okay.
There's
What-
7
yeah,
parishes
you
that
guys
you're
have
competing
different
against.
parish. So right now, if we don't do this, Commissioner Jackson deals with the citizens and these complaints for who knows how many more years because the state can never get to it.
Over 15, yes.
Okay. I think you answered all my questions. Thank you, sir.
But like I said, now, keep in mind, and Caddo Parish and the city and everybody else, when we maintain to different levels. An instant maintain, if there's a pothole, they call us, we discover that pothole, we put cold mix in that pothole, that hole gets fixed, you know. It rides like junk, but it's fixed, you know. And then if we have a stretch of road that's base failure, then we'll come in and we'll smear some hot mix and we'll do a skin patch on it, and that's fixed. But it rides even worse, you know. And then but we have a pavement preservation project that we only get one a year, but you grind all the patches and fix the bases, and then it's a full contractor, and then that's actually when you get a good road, a ride road. But you know, there's complaints on road maintenance and road ride. The roads, Ford at least, Caddo, we just had to put some money into that about, 7 years ago? We did a block there, you know, and that was with the city. The city laid it and we paid the hot mix for it.
Chairman, may I ask one last question? I know the Biden administration with the infrastructure bill appropriated billions. Are we still stuck on that one street per year, or is this infrastructure bill going to help you out to solve this issue?
No, it's not going to help.
Where is that billions going to?
They're going to special projects. So in other words, as Mr. Jackson asked that same question, I would love for Ford to be there. I'd love for Hearn to be there. I'd love for Common to be there, but Jimmy Davis Bridge is going to take it, and the inner city connector is going to take it, and you know the causeway down in New Orleans is going to take it. They're not going to give it to pavement preservation.
I appreciate y'all. I'll yield my time back.
All right, well, I had Chavez, Hopkins, Wilson, and Jackson, and now I've got two new guys on the board. So let's just go with my previous list with Hopkins. I think you're next.
Okay, my question is, has the city of Shreveport passed on right sizing?
Tim?
I talked to Gary Norman like last week. I mean, they've known about it, and he said that he couldn't make that decision. He would have to get with Chief Whitehorn and the mayor to move that forward, because before that Patrick Furlong, was involved, but now they've kind of moved their hierarchy over there. So, I mean, and right now the city is engaged with Rayleigh and Associates to do some surveying on the water lines. So they are trying to move forward. So that's it's a 2-year process to get the water lines moved. So.
But we can say that, as he's saying, that the previous city engineer and the previous city engineer before that, Mr. Westerman, and different mayors. This is not a new concept. It's an old concept that, I can't say it's good or bad. I can say that the city of Bossier is enjoying the East Bank, and they took Barksdale over. And they've got, bike paths and park benches and all that, and it's probably easier for the city than the parish to take it over because they have more need or infrastructure, but, your mayor's got to be on board with it,
And I guess, you know, and Mr. Jackson's right, we try to work together as much as we can. There are some things that give me great concern from being a one-time parish employee in Public Works. And I know for sure we do not have the expertise on traffic signals. We don't have the equipment, we don't have the manpower. So the city of Shreveport would have to still do that. But it wouldn't be but it's their road in the sense that it's inside the city. The city does its traffic engineering, correct?
So,
As far
yes,
as
right
lights?
now, the city and the city-state, it has a city-state agreement that we pay for the traffic signals that are maintained, but they maintain them with their traffic engineering.
So you would pay us, but I guess the other thing is we don't have
You
the
would
expertise.
adopt the traffic signals that would not be in the state highway. So in other words, Common, Market, Spring, and Hearn all are still gonna be in the state highway system, so we're still paying the city. But then, I think it's Allen, is it? There's 2 or 3, maybe 4 more that you would adopt, yes.
Okay.
And so you either would have to enter in with a city-state agreement or take them down for all we, it's not our road anymore.
Because there is I'm looking at this and I'm seeing the complexity of it, because you've got a state road that's inside the city, which makes the traffic regulations inside the city of speed limits and stuff like that. So we don't have the authority to do that inside that municipality. So there's still some problems, I see. And the main thing is the bridge. We're at the end of the life of that bridge, basically. I mean, they say 10 years away. That could be very off by 2 or 3 years, in that we need to do it something immediately. And that's a big bridge. I know which bridge it is, and so that gives me concern. That's all I have.
All right.
Should I say anything about the bridge or not?
You can. So, I mean, Mr. Chairman.
The bridge right now is in a good rating, and I'm not saying, and I do know that our state system, once again with the overlay, y'all not gonna like to hear that, but we're replacing a bridge every 200 years, you know. So if this bridge, if 173 were to go to if it were to go into a condition of we have to close it down, we're going to have to close it down because we can't replace it.
You mean like 530 and Highway and
Yes, exactly.
Caddo Lake Bridge?
Yeah, absolutely. 530 is a great example that it never, well, LA1, we just had to close it down. And it wasn't because we were replacing it, but it went down so bad that we had to close it down. Well, it was just lucky that we were replacing it.
Okay.
You know that because that's your district, you know, and and I know this is bleak for the state, but that is the alternative if the parish did take it and the bridge went to zero or went to a rating of whatever. You're probably in the same boat that we would be in.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be responsible if you still had it.
Right, but you still, whoever the user is would not, they're still looking at, they don't have a bridge.
Dr. Wilson?
Yes, sir. And Mr. Blunt, I had a question for you, sir. If neither the city or the parish accept this road, when would you all get around to doing your own road?
Like I said, it depends on what you're wanting to talk about doing. If we're talking about the repair of water lines that are leaking on the roadway, then once the city repairs their water lines, they have promised that they're going to move them out from underneath the roadway. When that happens, then I've pledged and promised, just like that we would go and overlay two blocks of it.
Okay.
As for to put it in the pavement, and that would be with our forces. As for when we will have it in the pavement preservation, right now, we're looking at probably 15 to 16 more years.
Okay. Hey, Mr. Bond, I was out there the other day again for the third or fourth time looking at it. There are 4 sewer mains in the center of the roads. What's going to be done about that?
That's the city.
So
the
in other
city
words-
owns it.
So in other words, no matter who owns the surface of the road, the city will have to dig it up occasionally to make repairs on it.
That's correct. Just like your parish roads, I assume that they do that same thing to your parish roads.
No,
and
sir,
they
we
do-
don't have force mains in our parish roads. We have culverts that we take care of, but not force main utility systems like that.
So you're saying that there's no sewage lines that are going down any parish road?
In the parish roads, we don't have sewer plants outside the parish, in the
yeah.
parish.
Yeah.
We have a sewer treatment plant here in the city,
Yeah.
and we don't have any in the parish.
Yeah. So that's an unfortunate thing for right sizing. Now, of course, that's something up to be discussed, but that's the unfortunate thing with right sizing, that you inherit all utilities that have done things in,
Yes.
50 years ago.
Right.
Electricity, telephone, or sewer.
Yes, sir, thank you for coming, but I know there's other questions for you, Mr. Blunt, so thank you from my
Well, we still have
perspective, thank you.
several- We still have
Thank you for
several other
coming.
people on the board. Commissioner Jackson, since you at one point were following Dr. Wilson, but now we've got several people who haven't spoken yet the first time, so I'll let them speak, and then we'll come back to you. Commissioner Talfero.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I understand it, so this is all conditional on whether the city does its infrastructure repair or not, correct?
Which part?
The overlaying, the repairing of the roadway, what we're talking about here. So in other words, no, it's not.
No, what I understand the resolution is he's asking that y'all make a letter and send it to the Secretary of Department of Transportation for them to work up a package for you to receive and look over and start a negotiation for right sizing. That has, the city, they have to repair their water line. And they I say they have to,
Apparently, no.
Apparently, they can allow it to leak for, years and,
Which is a moot point then for us to even get in the engagement into any kind of research or any kind of proposal or anything like that unless we have a great infrastructure underneath.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I don't disagree. Ford Street, and I've traveled it many times over my career as a law enforcement officer, and it has always been in poor shape. We all know that it does need to be repaired. I'm just not convinced, or I'm very concerned that even going through the negotiation process or the research process, that unless the city ponies up and does what they're supposed to do by fixing the infrastructure underneath, which is in poor condition probably, then it just seems like it's a moot point. If I was going to do anything, I would send it to a committee based on the city doing their deal and fixing the infrastructure repairs underneath. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Talfero. Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask a quick question about the bridge, Mr. Blunk.
Yes, sir.
Did you indicate to us that when the bridge falls into disrepair, there will be no one to repair it?
No, I'm not indicating that. I can't tell who's talking about. Sorry. No, I'm not saying that. We continue to repair bridges. However, this bridge right now is in good. It has no weight rating, and then it'll start dropping down, and then it'll start load rating the bridge, and then we'll have to repair it to try to bring it back up to standards, and it'll have a slow decline, and it'll go back down to 2015, and then as he was talking about, as at the end of its life, it'll be at a 5-10 ton, no trucks whatsoever are allowed. But that's not 50 years. That's probably going to be, if I were to guess, 100 years.
100 years from now?
Well, 100 years from 87, yeah.
Okay. So, for the foreseeable future, we'll have a bridge that crosses the.
Sure, and it'll be in a good condition, good shaped bridge that's able to take any load that we need.
Okay, thank you. And so, just a quick follow-up question. Did you read the letter that Dr. Wilson wrote us about this topic? Okay, well, let me ask you about some of my highlights from it. So the first one is the 55 lights, the traffic signals, the sewer and the water and the hydrants and the sidewalk, those are still city property, is that correct?
Sewer, water, sidewalks.
The street lights.
And street lights are all.
So unless we made some different agreement with the city, we wouldn't be taking care of those. We would just be taking care of the surface of the road.
You would expect them to take care of it, yes.
The city would take care of those.
And you would expect them, if something
if they did.
happened, then it would be your responsibility to contact the city and say, hey, take care of your stuff.
Okay. And then, this letter also said that the entire road needs to be taken in, but that's not accurate. Is that your opinion? You want it, your
From
department's
state
preference
highway
is
to
to
state
go
highway.
from one state highway intersection to another
Correct.
along this road. So could be any of several segments.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioner Jackson, as I understand your resolution, this is to get the process going correctly?
Get the process
So, if I understand the resolution as it is, I think it'd be best for us to start the process, and a lot of these questions that we have, we still can ask these questions, we still can do the research, but we've got to get the ball rolling somewhere. I don't see how, because some of this stuff that we're asking, you mentioned about the bridge, I would have to be 102 years old before that bridge is deemed to be repaired. So I don't think any of us are going to live to the point to where we're going to have to worry about that bridge being repaired so much today that we can't even get this resolution moving forward. So I'm thinking that if we're going to try to make some improvements and be of service to our constituents, we've got to at least do the due diligence of starting the process. And it seems like we're not even trying to do that. Am I misunderstanding something here?
Can I respond to what you're
Please,
saying?
I'm just getting clarity.
So-
I don't really.
Commissioner Jones, I would assume if you start a process, it has the beginning and an end, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm telling you, if you go forward with the process, the ultimate goal seems to be to right-size the road, but we end up accepting it. I'm telling you, there's some things we ought to consider, and while we go through it, and I'm trying to give you enough information you can make an informed decision. Do you want to go forward with something that you have to maintain eventually? And I'm telling you, there's limits in our ability to maintain that road.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm pointing out to you.
Okay.
As a informed commissioner voter, that it's not like a parish road that we take care all the time. This road requires some additional skill sets and equipment that we currently don't utilize and maintain that road. Because we will have the storm drain system on that road too, as part of inheriting the road. And it's not easy to clean those systems out. You had to buy additional big vac trucks to suck those things out. All that stuff will have to be purchased. We don't have any of that.
Okay. I guess the resolution is to start the process to get a package back so we can understand what we're dealing with, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So why not, and we still have to accept the right size. We can be considered, but we would still have to make a decision down the road to accept this, correct? Am I right?
Yeah, yes, sir. You would have, they would have to negotiate it
Right.
and get everything in writing, all the monies, and then you would have to either decide how you wanted to spend the $2.8 million or push it back into credits. You would, the project that we're talking about to bring the road up from poor to fair, that is right now to good to very good, would have to go, well, at least have to go in place unless y'all are gonna do it like Bossier City, and then you take all of the money and then you could spend the money the way, on the road the way you want it, and you can put park benches and whatever you want in it. But that's all before, I'm just spitballing the 2.8 out, because that's what Baton Rouge has already said. that money, that's not a, that's a negotiable number, you know. And the scope is a negotiable scope. And that's one thing that y'all are gonna need to decide, maybe not tonight or whatever, but I do know that whatever it was, the Pierre and to Hartman is not gonna be acceptable. So you're gonna need to know whether or not it's gonna be common to Hearn, whether or not it's gonna be Spring to Hearn, whether or not it's gonna be to 220, or whether or not it's, you know, common to Hearn is your smallest piece that we would be interested in. Market to Hearn. Hearn sounds like the big one because y'all are wanting Pierre to Hartman, you know, which is that 2 to 4 block in front of the Head Start that's hot mix. But unfortunately, we can't have Dangling Road in there, you know. So if we're going to split it, we're going to have to split it to a node.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. All right.
And by the way, the 100 years, I'm just giving you a idea of how bridge replacements work. We keep on maintaining them, and we keep fighting the good fight. So it may not last 100 years, and it would absolutely probably start requiring maintenance money about 50 years into it. So in about 2037, you're probably going to need to start spending some money on maintaining it. Now, of course, in our right sizing program, which is also negotiable, but it says that they're allocating $400,000 of the 2.8 for the 40 years of maintenance.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just say again that as of today, the bridge is not an issue. On the Tim James Road, when it is completed, if it is ever completed, the maintenance and upkeep of that bridge and that road is not going to be an issue. It's not we are jumping to the worst possible outcome. And what is before us is a process. It starts a process, and to say we don't even want to start the process is unimaginable to me. We have staff that is paid every day to come in and talk about and discuss how we're going to provide roads and bridge services to the citizens of Caddo Parish. School Park is in Caddo Parish, folks. Allendale is in Caddo Parish. Squirrel Point, where Chief Whitehorn cuts through every morning to come to work, is in Caddo Parish. This is a process. I heard Dr. Wilson say we don't have the equipment. We don't have to have the equipment tomorrow, do we?
We don't have equipment either.
Okay. It's their road and they don't have the equipment. But guess what else we didn't have the equipment for? We didn't have the equipment for that snow that hit the roads last year. But what did we come down here and do? We bought the equipment. This is what we do. And to sit here and say we're not going to even start a process, I just think that it is unimaginable for the people we say we represent and the resources. They pay a lot of taxes when they go up there to that Walmart and to that Shane's and to those other locations that are in the parish to shop. I'm there probably just because of my spending habits, but I'm up in that area almost every other day. I eat out almost every day. So why shouldn't the residents in these areas benefit? We're gonna spend our public works dollars on the road to connect the Red River Expressway. This is an issue of equity. This is an issue of equitable resources. When we start talking about how we distribute resources around the parish, you're telling people who pay into a public works tax, they cannot benefit from it. They cannot reap the services of it. And oh, by the way, we're not going to even consider a process that may or may not result in that. I just don't understand. Buncombe Road starts out in the city of Shreveport, converts to a parish road by Midway, and before you finish to get back out to the Pines Road, you back on a city street. And they have residential utilities on it. They've got sewer on it. And there, from time to time, there's potholes on it. And so there are scenarios all over Dixie Garden. When you come into Dixie Garden off of, what is that? Captain Shreve. You come in off of Captain Shreve, you go down Dixie Road, and you come back onto a state road, 70th Street. So these scenarios are there all the time. There are utilities on Dixie Road. There are homes on Dixie Road. There are sidewalks on Dixie Road. There are gutters on Dixie Road. So all we're asking you to do today and Thursday is start the process, and let's see where we end up. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. All right, I see no one else on the board. I think we're ready to vote to forward this to Thursday or not. Mr. Clerk? All right. A yes vote forwards it to Thursday. A no vote does not forward it to Thursday.
Okay, and that motion carries to advance with 7 in support and 3 in opposition. And if we could leave that vote screen up 1 sec, I'm just trying to note the votes by hand as well because our system keeps crashing. So I want to make sure we get this correct. Okay, yes, that is 7-3, and then there are 2 absent.
All
And
right.
that brings us to the next item, which is to authorize Grace Project as a visitor during the January 20th regular session.
I'll move to advance to Thursday.
All right, we have a motion to advance to Thursday and a from Commissioner Jackson and a second from Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Jackson, you want to comment?
No, I do not.
Okay. Any comments? Seeing no one on the board, shall we vote?
And that motion carries with 10 in support and none in opposition, 2 absent. That brings us to communiques and committee reports.
All right, anyone have anything else to add today? Commissioner Johnson.
I just got a quick question. I was gonna ask this because of the 2 days we were supposed to have some wintry mix. Did we buy the equipment for the roads? It's winter time. Winter is here.
We don't have the equipment.
You want an update? You want to update Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, if do we purchase?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Dr. Wilson. Oh, we got
Yes, sir.
Dr. Ward coming up.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Johnson, the budget was the funds were approved in the budget. The budget has just been approved for effective January 1. We've put our orders in for the materials. We were able to buy some of the chains that we needed for the vehicles, but the four-wheel drives and the chains for the motor graders have been placed on them. We're just waiting for those orders to be filled. So hopefully here real soon we'll have them.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Johnson?
That's it.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ward. Seeing no one else on communique?
Motion to adjourn.
Let's make sure. We have citizen comment late arrivals. Any?
We have not received any requests for citizens' comments.
Okay, we had a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Hopkins, I believe. All in favor? Aye. Whoever.
Yep.